call to order the November 10th, 2025 Royal Oak City Commission meeting to order. We're going to begin with an invocation given by Commissioner Herzog, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I ask that you stand if you can, please.
Last Tuesday was Election Day in Royal Oak. Congratulations to the winners. I look forward to serving on the commission with you soon. Tonight, I want to share 3 observations I had during this election cycle. First, turnout was high. Royal Oak ranked 3rd in Oakland County for voter turnout. The mayoral and city commission races brought 32.2% of the voters to the polls. There were no issues and the election ran smoothly. I want to thank our city clerk, city staff, the numerous volunteers, and of course the voters for ensuring voices in our community were heard. Tomorrow is Veterans Day, and I also want to thank our veterans and military service members for protecting our democracy. They risk their lives so we can participate in a system with free and fair elections. Second, the tenor of the political rhetoric. I was disappointed in the statements that were made during the election cycle, but I'm not naive. Calling politicians corrupt is not new. Instead of the actions being celebrated, our 20 to 40-year-old friendships, the motivation for serving, and the professional discussions at commission meetings were purposely distorted, all while the country is struggling with a loneliness epidemic, disengagement in community and civic service, and lack of collaboration. Unlike other political positions, the local level is personal. This is a community that we love, we have chosen to build a life here, and we want to do right by our neighbors, even when we get it wrong. I'm saddened by those who insinuate nefarious behavior and generally think the worst in others. And then finally, we have known that no matter who won the election, that we would have 2 new colleagues. When I was in 2nd grade, I had to memorize a proverb for Sunday school. He who walks with the wise grows wise, but a companion of fools suffers harm. It has stuck with me ever since. I am so grateful to have had the opportunity to serve with Commissioners Macy and Douglas. You have made me a better commissioner. The decisions you have made, the things you have fought for, the empathy you have for others will have a positive, lasting impact on our community for generations to come. Thank you for letting us walk with you and learn from you. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Herzog. All right, that brings us to item 4, 10 from the top. Gotcha. Sure.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. This is my segment 10 from the top, where I can update the community and those watching on key initiatives and positive progress from the staffing side of things and things that are of community of interest. So number 1, some quick stats as referenced on the general election. We did have positive turnout. The city clerk reports 32% general turnout. We have mayoral seat and 3 commissioners, 2 new commissioners that will be appointed at the November 24th City Commission meeting. So the next City Commission meeting is the first meeting where those transitions will occur. Veterans Day, we have plenty of things going on tomorrow in honor of Veterans Day. First, I'd note that at 11 o'clock in the morning, you can join us out in Centennial Commons for the 11 a.m. ceremony out at our monument. I'd like to extend a special invitation to our Vietnam veterans who will be offered a lapel pin honoring their service, which is honored and we should have honored years ago. There will also be, I'd also like to note, if you haven't noticed this opportunity, on the lobby we had a flag that one of our police officers, I don't know the T Sergeant, so I'll just say T Sergeant, Anthony Carter, I'm not sure what the T stands for, who flew in a mission over in the Middle East Flew a flag from Royal Oak in honor of the service from Royal Oak. So there's a wonderful little exhibit out in the lobby if you'd like to take a look at that before or after tonight's meeting. So thank you, Carter, for your service to the Royal Oak community as well as our nation. 4th Street lights up. The DDA has finished some progress on a small placemaking project that involves hanging zigzagging lights along 4th Street. This was funded through a Main Street Oakland County technical grant. So thank you to our partners at Oakland County for advancing our placemaking initiatives, and we're really looking forward to seeing how this augments the downtown feeling during the holidays. Some progress on the Salter Center roof replacement. Work is underway. As of this week, we anticipate 3 weeks to complete. Staff have been coordinating all activities, so I would like to credit our Parks and Rec department and our senior services for coordinating with the Salter Center on any programming disruptions that there may be, including pre-planning conversations with the director, Brett Talander, that happened a month ago. So we're in pretty good shape aligning this, and we're really looking forward, as you can see with the pictures on top. This roof was in need of replacement, and this will be funded thanks in part to the Commission appropriating American Rescue Plan dollars for prioritizing this facility need. Clausen Park improvements. We've been talking about it, and we just can't get the weather right. So regardless of the weather, I still wanted to celebrate what has been achieved, and you can see some of the images in this slideshow on some of the major investments in Clausen Park. So the renovated ball diamond was a ball diamond that was moved. The move is really going to improve the field of play, also going to improve some drainage issues that they have been experiencing. So the Royal Oak Sandlot League helped kick off that project, and I'm really excited to see that league in action in the spring with the new field. You can see there's a shaded picnic area, so now those parents who might have little tykes out on the playground can also watch their other kid who might be playing ball. So it's a great line of sight. That's a great improvement. And of course, the accessible pathways and connectivity is always a priority for the Commission for park improvements. And you can see that we've improved connectivity to the parking lot as well as just general connectivity with the park amenities. So really excited. If you haven't gone out to Clausen Park in a while, it's a good thing to check out. Emerging Artist Laureate. The Commission for the Arts is looking for an Emerging Artist Laureate program. So up to $4,000 awarded for prizes. This is an outstanding opportunity to promote arts within the community and a wonderful initiative undertaken by the Commission. Fall leaf collection. So just a couple of reminders. The weekend weather certainly wasn't helpful for our process. But the DPS, nonetheless, is still underway, still pursuing the annual leaf collection program. It does run typically through early December. We do have a daily tracker on the website address noted on the screen. Please move cars when there's no parking signs posted by the DPS to help facilitate an efficient and expedient leaf pickup process. We also allow and encourage leave the leaves. This is not saying let all your leaves pile up on the lawn, but of course there's a reasonable opportunity. Leaves do provide a good benefit to the lawn and also a good benefit to our local pollinators. So that is a choice, but know that that is a choice that the city encourages. Thrones are on the run. We have moved throne locations as part of some of the seasonal changes. So a couple noteworthy moves. The throne that was located at Lawson Park has moved to Normandy Oaks. That was directly responsive to some feedback about restroom needs at Normandy Oaks during the winter when the other restroom is closed for seasonal purposes. So the throne restroom is solar powered, also does provide heating and is serviced throughout the year as part of the contract. The farmers market has been moved to the transit center area. That was a data-oriented decision. I appreciate the feedback from the DDA director, who did provide good Placer AI data that shows the amount of foot traffic on a daily basis in the area, and that area is in need of a public restroom. We did confirm that after speaking with the transit center that they had limited public restroom opportunities within the transit center. So I think this is going to be a service addition because of the foot traffic, but also it just kind of aligns with the transit needs in general since we have a train station and a smart station down there. So we will continue to get the data from Throne on the usage of that. And then finally, in Centennial Commons, you'll notice that the Throne was moved away from the Star Dream Fountain. That continues to be the most used Throne of the three. We're getting great data and great feedback on the Throne programs. But again, the ability to move these shows the benefits and versatility of having the Thrones as opposed to a permanent installation that we changed course from earlier in the spring. And finally, the rink at Royal Oak. I'm really excited to join the community in celebrating our tree lighting and the opening of our ice rink on November 21st at 7 p.m. We have lots of events, lots of special guests, and this, I can say on a personal note, this was the first touch point for me as the new city manager here. I got to bring my family out here, and it was just such a cool experience and such a cool backdrop for the community. It's such a unique treasure that we have, and I really look forward to this, almost marking one year in. So with that, Mayor and Commission, I return it back to you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gaucho? A lot of cool stuff going on. Thank you, sir. You said the Thrones are on the run,
Yeah, he said that.
so the toilets are running?
Yeah.
You better check that.
Is the refrigerator running?
You better catch it.
Yeah.
All right. That brings us to item 5 tonight, the approval of the agenda. Does anyone wish to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda as it's presented to us? Commissioner Macy makes a motion to approve approval. Commissioner Colo seconds that motion. Discussion on the motion to approve tonight's agenda. All right. With none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, this brings us to public comment. The city values and relies upon the input of our citizens to help make decisions. Now is the time set aside for the public to address the City Commission on any city-related issue, whether or not it's on the agenda. I ask that comments be directed to the City Commission as a whole versus individual commissioners. We do have a public hearing tonight, so you'll be able to talk at the public hearing with the same rules that apply in addition to this general public comment. We've made it easier for you to request follow-up and on any issue by scanning the QR code you see displayed. Please make sure to double-check your information for accuracy as staff may utilize it for post-meeting responses. So sometimes people come up here, ask questions. We ask that you scan the QR if you're comfortable doing that. If not, we have the wonderful, amazing, festive, engaged Judy Davids here from the City of Royal Oak, and make sure you leave her contact information with her, and she will get your question answered. If you wish to speak tonight, either at public comment or at the public hearing, please wait until recognized by me. Come up to the podium. For the record, we ask for your name and address. Please be mindful that the city wishes to hear from anyone who wants to speak tonight, so comments are limited to 3 minutes per person, not per topic, and we have a timer at the podium to help you keep track of your time. Please note, we typically don't respond directly to questions during public comment. However, we are taking notes, and we'll address those questions when the agenda topic comes up. If your question is unrelated to anything on the agenda tonight, please make sure that you do leave your contact information so we can follow up accordingly. And staff is taking notes as well. Often we learn about things at public comment, and it's very helpful, and we go back and try to fix it. And I always tell folks, whether it's, DPS, our PD, this city commission, we can't solve a problem we're not aware of. So it's always good to make us aware of issues and, give us the opportunity to solve it. So with that, who's first tonight? I saw the hand here in the front.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Trish Oliver. I've been a Royal Oak resident since 1986. The Lawson Park neighborhood that sits between Lincoln and the 696 wall and between Main Street and about Mohawk has demonstrated strong opposition to the potential opening up of the proven cut-through traffic protections known as berms, diverters, or the newly added word by City Hall barriers. Federal money funded the installation of the diverters in the 1980s after I-696 was completed, and as a result of that major freeway slicing through an existing residential area, replacing the 10-mile surface street, which included entry and exit directly into the neighborhood. Before any decision is made now about removing the diverters, construction on I-696 needs to be completed since any traffic counts will be inaccurate until then. Therefore, a study cannot begin until the fall of 2027. Questions remain such as, once I-696 construction is completed, will the old truck route still average 1,600 vehicles per day? How many additional vehicles are projected to be added to the old truck route with the new multifamily housing projects under construction in the neighborhood or in the approval process now? Just as recently as 2018, the neighborhood successfully defended these diverters from being open based on the high crime associated with residential areas adjacent to easy freeway access, and also due to the many sustainable and green benefits of the diverters provide, such as the wildflowers growing there and the benefits of walkability and safety to walk to school. In addition, the traffic department recently documented speeding on Irving Avenue along the west side of the park. This is an ongoing, unresolved safety problem. The traffic diverter system needs to stay in place so that the roadway can evolve into a community street versus the current cut-through. If the series of traffic diverters is opened up, then the Mohawk Bermuda Bridge must also be removed, and the entrance and exits to I-696 must be removed as well. Or will those elements be unfairly left in place to serve the interests of Royal Oak cronyism and pressures from current political appointees who live in the vicinity? So this is to urge you to follow the September 11th traffic engineer recommendation to not remove them for the following reasons. The neighborhood has demonstrated strong opposition to the removal. Traffic circulation is not a common complaint. Thank you.
All right, who's next? Mr. Asher.
Good evening. My name is William Asher. I reside at 1003 Irving Avenue. An item on your agenda today pertains to a recommendation by the Citizens Traffic Committee to remove one of the berms near Lawson Park. I want to urge you to vote no on any motion to approve this recommendation. The city engineer prepared a thorough report giving you and the Traffic Committee a recommendation to retain the berms. Numerous reasons were given. I won't review them now other than to say that they emphasize survey results, safety, traffic, and the cost of removing the berm. I went to the Traffic Committee meeting, I think it was in September, and many residents spoke earnestly and eloquently about their interest in retaining the berms, as I did. Once the public comment was done, committee member Tash moved to remove the berm at the dead end of East Parent Avenue. That was his motion, and then that's what's on your agenda tonight to approve it or disapprove it. It was obviously passed 3-2. Unfortunately, the minutes of the Traffic Committee meeting do not record any of the committee discussion on the matter. It has all the public comment, including mine, but no committee discussion. As a result, I'm relying on my memory of what was said, and two things stand out to me. One is that Mr. Tash expressed concern that traffic trying to cut through the neighborhood, going north on Irving and then turning left on Parent, doesn't stop at the corner. And my objection to that comment is that there are numerous other ways to mitigate traffic moving around that corner. Something called chicanes. There are little bump outs in the street, like up on Morace Avenue near the Senior Center, or we could have speed bumps like we have on Forest Avenue near Hollywood Market. Removing the berm is not going to slow traffic down and presumably will cost a lot more to remove than installing chicanes would cost. Mr. Tash also, this is the second thing, he also expressed a concern about equity, comparing Dondero Park nearby and its neighborhood with Lawson Park. If Dondero Park gets along fine without traffic diverters, why does Lawson Park need them? And the short answer is I-696 and the crazy exit at Mohawk, which encourages people to enter the neighborhood and speed by the park. Lawson and Dondero are different cases, and one doesn't affect the other. As I've told this body on at least 2 other occasions, those berms have enhanced the quality of life for me and many other residents of my neighborhood, and I respectfully ask that you retain them by voting no on the measure. One last thing, I have 8 seconds. I want to thank Commissioners Douglas and Macy for their service and congratulate Commissioner Colo and Mayor Fournier. I can't do the other congratulations. And Commissioners-elect Fontina and Bastian.
Thank you, Mr. Asher. Yes.
Hi, I'm Kathy Condit from 524 James Circle, and I'm also here to address the Lawson Park berm situation, which is item 9D. So hello, Mayor and City Commissioners. I'm here to give a public statement opposing the removal of berms around Lawson Park. I am here tonight as a 21-year Royal Oak resident, having lived across from Lawson Park and the crossings at Irving Development for that entire period. My children, now grown, use that park as their backyard for their entire childhood. My professional background includes regulatory safety policy analysis, market research, and automotive industry planning. When I first moved to this area, and the park was in relatively poor shape, and the neighborhood was more industrial and also less busy, I wondered why the berms could not be removed. After attending several city hearings and listening to my neighbors on the other side of the berms, I decided to hold my tongue and align with their views. I continue to oppose the berm removal, which is why I'm here tonight. So in short, my personal and professional experience have given me good reason to conclude that the berm removal would be a mistake. So the park has become very popular due to its excellent amenities. I sincerely thank those of you in city government who have contributed to making the park a better place for athletics and play through careful spending of block grant funds. The most popular parts of the park are the fancy basketball court with its special surfacing and the tall playground structure, which is ideally situated next to the pavilion to allow for parents to supervise and for birthday parties. These are located next to the berm and parking area at the north end of the park. So the kids and the basketball players are really close to the street, the berms, and all of this. And if you take the berms away, you're putting more roads right by kids and basketball players. So just going on a bit of a tangent, this park is so attractive that it's almost over-improved. So I'd like to see these great features spread around to other bigger Royal Oak parks that could also use them, that have more frontage and more parking. So notwithstanding the park's popularity, I believe there's sufficient walkable parking within 2 blocks of this area. And it's also obvious from previous hearings that residents don't want the berms removed and that they feel it offers safety in the area. And more concrete doesn't offer any fun. We just spend money on convenience for cars. So keep that in mind. I believe that the specific berm being proposed for removal is the most unsafe of the berm removal choices, given the street alignment there. This is the busiest area for crosswalks, both north-south and east-west. And if you connect that parking area, you're putting more cars driving through, both in potential head-on orientations to each other. You're putting another stream of cars into an area where there's blind curves because people park badly in that area. And this is the area where kids, small dogs on leashes, and balls roll into the street. So please don't add more parking there. So just to summarize some objections, I agree with the market research survey. It was very well done. The city engineer understood the will of the residents and opposed this. That was great, really appropriate. And the removal...
I need you to finish your last statement.
Yeah, okay, the removal of the berm completely undoes other goals I have heard this committee and commission advocate for, including rain gardens, traffic calming in front of Harrison Lofts, and prioritizing pedestrian walkability. So I'd really like it if you would oppose the berm removal tonight. Thank you for the extra time.
All right, who's next? Yes, sir, in the back.
Good evening, Mayor, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Greg Hall, and I live at 1222 Longfellow Avenue, which is just north of Lawson Park. I'm here to respectfully ask that you do not approve the removal of the berm at East Parent and Irving intersection, listed as Traffic Committee Resolution Item D on tonight's agenda. I've always appreciated this Commission's commitment to making decisions based on data, fiscal responsibility, and staff expertise, and I think this issue reflects all three. We're fortunate to have such talented engineering staff led by Holly Donahue. She, along with the city engineering staff, recommended to the Traffic Committee back in September not to remove the traffic diverter at this intersection. And this seems to align with what the residents have also been saying. The 2025 resident survey, 72% of the neighbors near Lawson Park support keeping that berm in place. Residents and park visitors say it's vital for traffic calming and safety, especially for children like my own. I have two daughters, 6 and 4. Hi, Marilyn and Amelia, watching at home. And especially for the regulars who play basketball there on that busy basketball court all the time. If there are still concerns about traffic or safety in this area, I think a more thorough review via updated resident surveys or data collection would make sense before taking any action. Removing the berm feels like a quick fix to a problem that might not even exist. It also doesn't seem to be fiscally sound. Removing one berm would cost about $160,000 to add just 4 parking spaces, while the planned off-street parking project already in the fiscal year 29-30 capital improvement plan would cost less than half of that budget and add 10 parking spaces for the park. So keeping the berm seems to be the fiscally responsible choice. With no urgent traffic issue to resolve and I-696 construction going on until 2026 or further, any major change now might be premature. For these reasons, I respectfully urge you to follow the staff recommendation and take no action on item D this evening. Keeping the berm protects safety, preserves investments, and maintains the character of Lawson Park, and that's one of the things that makes Royal Oak such a great place to live. Thank you so much.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Lucy Morton, and I reside at 3168 Merrill Avenue. I'm here to talk about item 9C, and it has to do with the Albert Street modification. I bought into the Royalwood Cooperatives there approximately 15 years ago. We have no public parking other than Albert Street for guests, visitors, family, etc. To the north of us is Brownstone Cooperatives. They have a nice lot. It is a private lot to them. To the east of us is Basha Medical. They also have a nice big lot, but that is private and we cannot park there. Any resident moving into this facility is assigned 1 parking spot. If you are a couple or you have 2 or 3 people in your units that have vehicles, 1 gets a spot in the lot, the other 2 are on the street. I disagree with the previous minutes from the Traffic Committee that said that under current configuration, there was 20 spots available. I leave my residence at 5 a.m. every morning, and on average, there's anywhere between 20 to 25 vehicles parked on the north side of the street on Albert. To move it to the south side of the street, the fire department wants a 20-foot berm access for egress to the driveways. We have 2 driveways, so that's 40 feet taken from there. The recommendation in the report says that that would give us approximately 23 vehicles, available spaces to park. I disagree with that. That's not, to me, factual. Further, the petitioner was not, the staff did not prepare a petition for this request made by another individual. And so I think there was some failure of due diligence to pursue this and investigate it further. Also, the way that the complaint was originally raised was inclement weather and crossing the street. Albert Street gets a huge amount of traffic. It's a cut-through street on the way to Corwell Health, on the way into work in the morning, and on the way home in the afternoon hours. So the concern was an icy walkway crossing the street to access the vehicles. I can tell you that if it snows, within an hour, our street is just about dry because the sheer volume of the friction of the tires on the roadway evaporates that buildup of snow, ice accumulation, etc. I think that this would be detrimental to all the residents who rely on parking on Albert Street. I think that there should have been more of a survey performed before this decision and recommendation was made. Thank you for your time. I appreciate that.
Mr. Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor. Bill Harrison, Woodward Side Subdivision. Regarding the proposed $35 million capital improvement bond, please address the following during your discussion. How much in arrears is the water and sewage fund? Over what period of time will the funds be utilized? Are you considering a 20 or 30-year bond? I would like to hear the bond council's thoughts on this. What effect will the bond payments have on the general fund balance? Are you planning on requesting a property tax increase to cover the bond debt payments? Another topic. I have received 3 voter registration cards due to the consolidation of precincts. The first 2 cards have a signature block. The last card does not have a signature block. Why? There's another $1.6 million shortfall in the parking system fund. How do you intend to cure this shortfall? The DDA used to receive an Excel spreadsheet that listed each parking lot and structure, the number of spaces per lot and structure, the monthly revenue per lot or structure, the dollars per space per year for each lot and structure. And the DDA should be advised of any shortfall in the parking system fund on a monthly basis. My understanding is, the last time they got hit with a $1.5 million bill for the shortfall in the parking, my understanding was that they asked for 3 years for data and received nothing. This is not right. The DDA is the parking committee, but they're only the parking committee when you folks want something from them. It's not right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. All right, who's next? Yes, ma'am.
Nancy Poprofsky. Aging helps me appreciate the little things in life even more. When health limits you going places, your yard can be a magical place, sitting on the porch during a warm spring rain, watching everything turn green again, or a full moon shining, giving everything a glow while the fireflies blink as they navigate bushes. On a quiet fall day, watching the leaves scatter through the air and streets, it makes a wonderful sound. Having a porch is a connection to nature and your neighbors. It's so sad so many new homes are crammed into their lots with little vegetation or nature to enjoy. At the end of my street and others are green buffers. They give our streets peace and quiet. They help keep streets from flooding. They give neighbors from all around safety without worrying about someone speeding off 696 while you're trying to bike, walk dogs, unload cars for a picnic at the pavilion, teenagers running to play basketball from their cars, and young kids forgetting to look both ways because they can't wait to climb the giant structure. The city survey we got says more than 70% of my neighbors love the green buffers. It's easy to see why. Several years ago, when the green buffers were in danger, I shook the hands of city officials when they voted to keep them. It restored my faith in humanity, knowing the city recognized their importance. The green buffers are the most important part of my neighborhood for safety. The city has started a great new program about children having safe routes to school. When children are out of school, they go to the park. They need to be safe getting out of their cars. Opening the buffers will take that away. Once we had the bad South End flood, the green buffer streets had little flooding. They play a major role as an environmental deterrent to flooding. Why would we take that away? Let's stick to the platform about sustainability, safety, walkability, and green space scenery. The buffers give all above and more. If any are taken away, the neighborhood will suffer. The handshake and vote in the city chambers to keep all the green buffers meant a lot to me, and most officials understood. Please don't change keeping the buffers and promising handshake. Please don't let me, neighbors, visitors, environment, safety, walkability, and especially the children, don't let them down by opening the green buffers. This would be an unnecessary, tragic mistake. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bobrowski. All right, who's next? The man in the salmon shirt in the back corner.
You know you get in trouble.
I do, because my eyes aren't as good as they used to be.
Thank you. Since Marilyn and Amelia are watching at home, I will start with the festivities and expanding on City Manager Gaucho's talk about what's coming up a week from Friday. The lighting of the park is just an incredible event that features top figure skaters, R&B singer from Detroit, Thornetta Davis. I want to mention the mini carnival rides and inflatables that are free if you bring 4 cans of food for your entire family. So 4 cans of food to support the Metro Detroit Holiday Basket Drive gets free rides and games. I'll mention that. Give Thanks Bakery is going to be there. There is the Royal Oak Children's Choir, the Royal Oak Drumline. Santa's coming on a fire truck. So it will be an amazing event once again. It really went to the next level, and just want to mention the entire park lights up, and it is also the kickoff for the rink at Royal Oak. If I sound and look tired, I am tired because we are working on a lot of great stuff. And that is just the first of 5 weekends. I want to mention on weekend 2, there are free zip line rides. There's a food truck rally on weekend 2. So at Winter Blast, when it was free, you'd have to pay to go on the zip line. It will be free this year. On weekend 3, the mayor's vision of seeing a authentic holiday outdoor market is going to come to reality. It is a full market with the support of many local businesses. Several business owners who live in the city of Royal Oak will be showcasing and selling their wares. Just so excited about this. There'll be a lodge tent with singing and the Detroit School of Rock, a teen karaoke competition, and also children's performances from students in the city. It is going to be 2 weekends of that. On the third weekend, you could skate for free at the rink of Royal Oak. So all of this value is coming, and that's on a weekend during prime season. So that's going to be very exciting. There's ice, that's weekend 4. Ice sculptures will be here weekend 5. It is all at royaloakholidays.com, and it is really coming together, and there's been so much support from the city on so many different fronts, and just so excited to see things kick off again a week from Friday. But check out the site. There are many things. I'll mention the cookie crawl as well. We've had 100 people sign up, and we haven't even started advertising it just from last year. So great cookie stops, great bakeries. In my last 14 seconds here, congratulations to Mayor Fournier, Commissioner Colo. It's been a pleasure working with you on great community stuff. And also my thanks to Commissioner Douglas and Commissioner Macy. Thank you for challenging me. Commissioner Douglas, your attendance at meetings and the feedback from the community has been invaluable. Commissioner Macy, your advocacy for supporting local organizations and high school and student organizations with the events we do. Thank you very much. Best wishes to you both and to everyone else. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else wish to speak tonight at public comment? Going once, Going twice. All right, we're going to bring the meeting back to this side of the table. Thank you, everyone, for participating in public comment. Gratefully appreciate it. So that brings us to our public hearing tonight. Michigan Liquor Control Commission public hearing and request to approve plan of operation for The Wise LLC.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. The Police Department received a request for The Wise LLC to review a new plan of operation for the transfer of a Class C liquor license to be located at 917 North Main Street. The license is being transferred from VLK Enterprises Incorporated and is currently in escrow in Sylvan Lake. They're requesting a SDM license, Sunday Sales PM permit, and entertainment permit. If approved, the applicant will be doing business as For the Wise and will operate as a full-service restaurant with table service and a full-service bar. For the Wise will feature a menu centered on fresh seafood, wood-grilled skewers, artesian flatbreads, and hearty entrees. For the Wise's sole member is Dominic Morelli. Since 2021, he has been a partner in Beppe, an Italian restaurant located at 703 North Main Street, which has a Class C and SDM license. In June 2024, Beppe received a violation from the Royal Oak Police Department for selling alcoholic liquor to a minor decoy. A fine was paid, which closed the matter with the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. Aside from this incident, in the last 2 years, the police department has only responded to one call for service at Beppe, which was not alcohol related. For the Wise's proposed hours of operation are Sunday through Thursday from 4 p.m. until midnight, and Friday through Saturday from 4 p.m. to 2 a.m. The kitchen will remain open until midnight on Friday and Saturday. Last call for alcohol will be 30 minutes before closing, with last service 20 minutes before closing. The applicant anticipates the food to alcohol sales ratio to be 60% food to 40% alcohol. The interior seating capacity is for 66 patrons, including 14 bar seats. There will be no structural changes, only cosmetic renovations to the building, which was in place years ago. For the Wise may offer occasional entertainment Thursday through Sunday, such as live acoustic solo artists or a DJ. They will not have dancing or an outdoor service area. The police department is not opposed to this request. I'm happy to take any questions from you. Also, the applicant and his attorney are present.
Questions? Commissioner Colo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Lieutenant. Just a quick question. I believe I recall when this site closed, and I miss it quite a bit, but the parking was then transferred, all the parking spots were kind of transferred over to Bread by Crispelli's. Was that the case, and does that impact their capacity, or is there agreement in place for the parking to be used at night?
I think we need to get some clarification on that from the applicant and his attorney.
We'll make sure. Any other questions first on our end? Okay, applicant.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Chris Tower. I am here on behalf of Dominic and For the Wise LLC. I'm with Atkinson, Edallen, and Rentrop. To address your question, we have entered into a lease with Crispelli's, and in our lease, it actually has dictated we can't open before 4 p.m. for that exact concern. There's not going to be any overlap of operation, just so we can keep all the parking, in the morning and lunchtime for Crispelli's, and then after for lunch and dinner service for our concept.
Great. Love the idea that we could share that parking lot to have multiple spaces using that dead parking at times. Thanks.
Any other questions for the applicant petitioner? Commissioner Colo.
Thank you. I don't know if this is for you, Mr. Tower, or for your applicant, but can you tell us about the menu, what kind of food's being offered, and kind of the vibe of the place?
That's a great question for the applicant. Come on up, Dominic.
Absolutely. How we doing, guys? Pleasure to be here. Yeah, great question. So For the Wise will be a bar that's deeply rooted in a social atmosphere, a place that has a welcoming environment, a level of inclusivity, but also a sophistication to it. So I think similarly to what I'm doing now at Beppe, is a place where chef curated, but also a level of affordability as well. So I think something that really the community can align with, and hopefully many people can frequent. So in terms of food specifics, like the police chief mentioned, there's gonna be some small items like oysters, things like that, some raw seafood dishes. We're gonna have a wood-fired grill, grilling up skewers and stuff like that. We're gonna do some flatbreads as well, and then some small desserts and things like that. So highly sociable. The vibe we kind of want to have is people are coming, socializing, having a drink or two, and also getting some food to share, and then just having a good time.
Great. What made you choose Royal Oak? I mean, I know you have Pepe going, but like, what made you choose Royal Oak for that type of concept?
Sure, great question. I think Royal Oak's just an up-and-coming city. Obviously, every demographics in Royal Oak. So I think to be a business owner in Royal Oak, it's like, what else would you want? It's a young city. People who are successful live here. People who want to go out, want to have a good time. There's obviously a lot of other great businesses in Royal Oak, so I think it's good to be a part of, a city that has a lot of great businesses. I think we can all benefit from each other. So I think for me to already own one business and having success at it was a no-brainer to open up another one.
Thank you. Very good. Any other questions? Just ask, what's your estimated time of?
Sure. Hopefully, still looking for some city approval on some things in terms of the building. But the sooner we get that, the better. Probably March, maybe February. Yep.
Okay. That's not too bad.
Yeah, not too bad.
It's hard to open up a restaurant.
It is. It is.
I mean,
But
that.
I love it. Yep. So.
All right. Yeah. Good. No other questions? All right. Be on standby. We're going to open up the public hearing, and then if there's anything that comes up at the public hearing, we may need to call you guys back up to answer a few questions if we have any.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks. All right. I'm going to open up the public hearing. The same rules apply as they do to the public comment. So it's open. Anybody? Mr. Davids.
Good evening. John Davids, 118 Crane Avenue. Our property adjoins the property, the old in-place property where the new facility will be. We love bread. They're great neighbors. We're there 3 or 4 times a week getting bread and coffee. We think this will be a great neighbor as well. We're very excited about it. The only issue we have is some of the language in the proposal talking about on-street parking. Crane Avenue is parking on one side only. The 2 businesses on the corners of Main and Crane both have employees and customers parking on the street at times, so the parking is very limited there. So what we're hoping is that the business can at least have their employees not park on site or not on street parking, but perhaps park in the parking lot at Bread, which is a large lot. There's also the large city lot just north, block north on Main and Catalpa. The parking issue is not only just an availability of parking, but when the in-place was open, people leave the bar not intentionally, they're just very noisy, and our house is right on the alley next to the bar. When the windows are open, it's very, very loud hearing people come out of the bar at 2 o'clock or employees come out. So we would just like to have the language for employees at least. I know there's more control over where employees park than the public, to reflect that they would park on site or in a public lot rather than on street parking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davids. Anybody else?
Good evening. Cheryl Green, 922 North Stenner Street, and we live directly behind the new proposed restaurant. So first off, just want to say 25-year resident, and we're excited that the new arm of, if you will, Crispelli, is moving in their responsible business. So we're excited about that. Just a few things I wanted to comment on from the January 14th Planning Commission meeting, where they approved the special land use and the site plan with contingency. So our first concern is in regards to lighting. So we're trying to resolve some lighting issues with the Crispelli building right now, which shines directly onto our property. So recently, some of the lighting, the Cobra head lighting, was installed at the new location 917. They look beautiful. They're lower than what was there, but what was there previously was fully shielded. The very tall Cobra lights. So these are lower, however, They're still tall. I assume they meet the 15 feet requirement that was set. However, when you're in your backyard and you're lower than them, because they're LEDs, and even though they face down, when you're lower than them, the angle of them, it still shines brightly into our backyards. It's blinding when you look at them. So we'd like to request, please, that they fully shield the double head Cobra light as well as the single head Cobra light that is north of their building. So it's in that in-between parking lot. And I'm sure they'd have to evaluate the lighting on the other side of the building as well, because it appears to be quite bright and shining on that other home as well. So we'd really love to get that resolved. The other concern is the dumpster. So a little, disappointed because back in January we had worked with the stakeholders at this meeting here to propose an idea for where the dumpster could be so it wasn't up against our back wall. Unfortunately, the site plan was changed, and I guess residents don't have to be notified of that. So it's now moved, the whole enclosure is directly behind our home, and now hearing that seafood and things like that are going to be served at the restaurant. It's a little concerning during the summer months, et cetera. We have to deal with bread and things being taken from the Crispelli dumpster. We find all that on our porch, stuffed in our cushions, et cetera. So I'd really like to see focus on this dumpster enclosure. I did read that it's going to be emptied twice a week, which is great. But I also read about the lid being closed and that it being locked. So I'd really like to see that being fully focused on, because I'm sure none of you would want a dumpster back up against your home. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else here on the public hearing? All right, we're going to close the public hearing and bring the meeting back to this side of the table. So, Commissioner Macy? No? You were gesturing. Okay, sorry. I got a hawk for that hand movement. Well, maybe if the petitioner could come back up, there were a few things raised during the public hearing, and maybe if you could respond to those, and then we can go with questions from there. Did you take notes, or do you need me to read them?
Yeah, I was taking notes.
Okay, all right.
So as for the parking issues, I just had a quick sidebar with Dominic, and he is completely fine with, having an agreement with the city or whoever we need to just enforce some restrictions for where the employees should be parking, so that street parking or on-site parking is a little bit more available to the patrons coming into the restaurant, and hopefully helping out with the late at night noise with employees leaving the premises after their shifts. As far as the lighting issues and the dumpster issues, I know Dominic is going, and his team are going to be very considerate of all the neighbors, and doing their best to keep the dumpster enclosed at all times and shut, and abide by all the things in our plan of operation, which are under our control with it, which is, we're going to have the dumpster emptied out twice a week, and all things of that nature. As for the lighting, I believe that is a landlord concern, and we can discuss that with the landlord and what's been brought up here tonight. But those are just a couple things that I wanted to kind of respond to. But we are going to do our best and keep a dialogue open with the neighbors, because I know that a new restaurant, and especially a restaurant coming in at night for lunch and dinner service, is going to be a point of contention with some neighbors, because we all want to be living harmoniously. So we're going to keep that line of communication open as always.
Questions? Commissioner Douglas.
Yes, I'm going to assume the building department will inspect this property before it opens, and they will use the approved site plan as a reference. And I would expect that if the site plan specifies lighting conditions, that the building department would be looking at those lighting conditions to make sure they comply with what is approved. And if not, fix it.
Absolutely, yes.
Any other questions? Commissioner Colo. Oh, Commissioner
Macy. Guess I kind of want to follow up on that. So so maybe this question's for you. Are you saying that the shielding of these Cobra lights is something that the building department is going to require is done? Or are you saying if it is in violation of our city ordinances, then?
If it is in violation of the site plan. The Planning Commission is fussy about lighting and spilling and the effects on neighbors. And so if they submitted a site plan with certain materials and descriptions and so forth, then we would expect it to apply for that site plan.
Okay, so as someone who's on the Planning Commission, you are saying that your understanding is that this shielding, that it will not be impeding on the property, the nearby properties, the lights as they exist in the site plan?
Having not looked at the site plan in 8-9 months, I don't know, but
you just remember that you're fussy, and so that you think
yes.
you probably do. Okay. And then how about, same question about the dumpster, it sounds like it was somewhere else, and now there's a changed site plan. Did that happen? Did the Planning Commission see it that way with the new location or not? Do you happen to know?
Don't know. I mean, staff does have flexibility in these matters to make, decisions, audibles on the field. If this was, I don't know how that got changed.
Okay. All right. And then now a question for you. So you said that the lighting is a landlord issue. I assume you mean Crispelli's.
Yes, we have entered into the lease with the landowner, which is Crispelli's. They own both of those pieces of land, both of those buildings. So that's something that we can absolutely bring up with Crispelli's, and as they know, this has been brought up at the Planning Commission and here tonight. So we are in control of what's going on inside the building and the plan of operation and what renovations we're going to make there. But we also have the open line of communication with the landlord, so we're happy to keep that dialogue open as well.
Okay.
And as Commissioner Douglas said, whatever the site plan was approved to be is what we're sticking to. Just like the plan of operation, the site plan, we're going to abide by that because that's what was approved.
Okay. And then for the dumpster, so there was some mention made of locks. Is that part of what the agreement is that the dumpster would be locked during?
I do not believe so. There's nothing in our plan of operation right now about locks on the dumpster. If that's something that Dominic would be open to, and that's something that is available for us to do, if that would alleviate some concerns, then I'm sure we're open to locking dumpsters overnight so there's no dumping in there and unauthorized dumping or anything of that sort.
Okay, I think those are all my questions.
Yeah, I think with the dumpster, it's not so much the unauthorized dumping, it's the critters and stuff getting in there, raccoons, and bringing it to the neighbor's house and dropping off bread, and then, which is fine, bread, I mean, it's not fine, but it's, but if you have oyster shells and,
Yeah, exactly.
Fish heads and things of that nature, that would be, that'd be a nuisance, right?
Absolutely, yes.
And I don't think you guys want that. I mean, imagine a free press article that, says, cool restaurants, fish heads end up in neighbors, lawn chair.
Yeah.
So.
Free plus or something like that.
No. But I think though, when we talk about the lighting, I will say, and I can't recall, this was 9 months ago. I remember the topic. I remember we talked about a lot of stuff, and I know we have an ordinance right now that is very protective of neighboring, we call it light bleed, and we look at lumens and we look at a lot of different things. So it will absolutely have to be, and I know Gary would jump on it in a heartbeat if somehow we missed it. That being said, and I know there's a relationship between the landlord and the applicant here tonight, making sure that fits, the site plan exactly what was expected, and if there's still, it's not working out perfectly, how do we, can we get, would you guys, I hear what you're saying is you'll talk about it. I interpret that as an offer that you'll figure it out so the neighbor is not impacted, whatever that solution is.
Yes.
That's what I hear you saying.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I mean, whatever we need to do to, be good neighbors is what we're going to do.
Okay. And then the dumpster, we talked about the lock, we talked about, and I can't remember the site plan on the dumpster either. if it was changed or if it moved slightly, because sometimes you get, things where an easement or something like that is missed or something and they move it. Yes.
So all we're here to do tonight is to approve the plan of operation for the
Yeah,
restaurant.
that's correct.
But I think our planning director, I think I saw back here, he's listening, the city manager's listening, the city attorney is listening. I'm confident that they will remain alert and do the right thing.
Yeah. I mean, you're correct. At the same time, if the operation, has, now that we've learned about seafood and all, it has a negative implication on the neighborhood, that's an operating thing, not a site plan thing, although they are kind of mixed. But I think you're right. I see Mr. Murphy back there. He's nodding his head positively that both the dumpster situation, the lighting situation. Now, from the employee parking thing, is that something that you would, you said you're willing to enter into an agreement with, I don't know how that works. Maybe I have to ask Mr. Grachowski. Is that something that they can, how does that work? Can they come up with, show an agreement with their employees and then register it with the city? Or what's the enforceability of that?
I mean, I'm sorry. If I may, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So part of a plan of operation includes some parking component to it. They have a parking component to their plan of operation. That could be possibly revised, a minor revision to that to reflect that.
Their employees will be directed to park in X lot.
Exactly, that they're going to, make best efforts to make sure their employees park in a manner that won't cause overflow into the neighborhood parking, on-street parking.
So then that would be, someone here could make a motion to approve with the condition that a small modification to the satisfaction of the city attorney to address that situation, so it's codified into this operating agreement.
And the satisfaction of the police department, because I would want them to make sure that they're weighing in properly on that, given it's also a police issue, but yes.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner Colo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to know if it's okay, we go back to the dumpster just for a second here, because I know we have at times, there have been some plan of operations that we also include a site plan, because there's a change, and there's other times where we just include the plan of operation. And we've talked about a dumpster a lot. I think it was a Hotel Royal Oak. We spent an hour talking about where a 2-yard dumpster would be located. So I do have a question though. We don't see the dumpster on this plan here. If you guys could just tell us exactly where it's being placed, what's being shielded around it, and where it's going to look like on the site, I think would help with the decision making here. And I remind everyone that it's actually in the site plan or the plan of operation right now. Those lock lids were actually in place already. You have voluntarily entered into that already on behalf of your client. So it seems like that's in place. I'm wondering where they're actually going to go.
So from my knowledge, the dumpster has been built, like the structure. I don't know exactly what direction it is in, but if you go to Bread by Crispelli's Bakery, you can see there's a dumpster in the back corner of their parking lot, which is actually 917 North Main Street's land technically. So that's been built. But in terms of the dumpster being locked, that's not something that has been brought to my plate yet. But I'm not against it by any means.
Okay, wait, I'm sorry. So you're sharing a dumpster with Bread?
No. So, but if you were to go drive to Bread, you can see that there's a dumpster that is 917 for the Wise's dumpster, but it's kind of in their lot, if that makes sense.
It's in the parking lot.
Okay.
The dumpster for my new business for the Wise is in the parking lot of Crispelli's Bakery, but it's a recently newly built dumpster that was built for the Wise's purpose.
Okay. So the dumpster's not on the, so it's in Crispelli's Bakery's parking lot against the west wall?
I believe so. It's been built, so, and again, obviously I'm the tenant, not the landlord, so I know the landlord was going through the initial plans with you guys, and now obviously I'm renovating the building and occupying it, so I was not involved in the dumpster meetings and stuff like that.
And is this dumpster is there 2 dumpsters side by side, or is it 2 dumpsters spread out on the Crispelli's parking lot? Yeah, I wish we had that.
So
site plan.
Crispelli's dumpster is on the opposite side of the parking lot.
Okay.
And that'll be used for their sole purpose, and this dumpster was originally built for the purpose of my business.
Okay.
Yep.
I think I know where it's going now, if I remember correctly, because you're going to come right off of Main Street. The truck's going to pull in, pull it out, and back out.
Yep.
Okay. Or drive or loop through if there's no cars. Okay. Do you see where that, I believe, the placement is? I can't say for sure, Commissioner Colo, but my guess is that southwest corner.
Yeah, no, yes, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Cheatham.
So I would encourage you to become familiar with what's in your plan of operation, because it sounds like you wouldn't know that the locked lids were there. So please make sure that you're familiar with it so that you can operate in alignment with that. But I do wonder if the other thing around refuse disposal is a water line with spigot will be provided to the dumpster. Is that present for washing the dumpster with where it's located? Because where you're saying it is, I'm just wondering about a water line to it, and that's also in the plan of operation. Or am I reading the wrong thing?
Again, that's not something that I'm familiar with. That's not something that I have currently at my current business, Beppe, so I mean, I'm not against it. I'm not opposed to it by any means. That's something that the city or the city planning commission wants to suggest, and I'm all for it.
That would probably be on the bakery's property. You know what I mean? Since they're the ones that are.
Yeah.
But I think on that one, if it's not getting cleaned or washed, then it's always enforceable, right? So if there is an issue, it's like, hey, it might cost you more now to do it, but you have to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, thank you. We'll discuss it up here. All right, Commissioner Colo.
Okay, I'll just kick it off. I love the idea. I love the concept. I think this could be a phenomenal restaurant when it opens sometime this springish. It's a great idea. I do have some questions remaining around the placement of the dumpster, the site plans, adjusting the lighting, and changing of the plan of operation. So I'd love to hear my colleagues' thoughts on all those, on how that change. Should we see these plans? Should we see changes? Should we see where the dumpster goes on a site plan? I also don't know if that's beyond what we typically see here, and I don't want to overstep what we do, because the Planning Commission has made these decisions, and we're looking at the plan of operation. So I'm torn on where we go next on that.
So I'll give you a little bit of perspective from the Planning Commission and from here. So the first thing, it sounds like the parking issue can be addressed in the agreement. So, and that'll be a pretty solid, somewhat enforceable if, the employees aren't doing it and it's, we find like, oh, you're telling them to park there, ignore the city or whatever, that's a violation of the agreement. Guess what? That's a problem. You know what I mean? I don't think you're gonna do that, but I mean, let's say you sell the business, something happens, right? It's there, it's codified, it's good. From a lighting point of view, I'll say that I agree with Commissioner Douglas. We have ordinances in place that prevent the bleeding of light into other properties. I'm guessing either this property has not been fully inspected yet, and therefore those shields aren't in place, or it could be a small chance, a very small chance that the Planning Commission missed that, which I'm just guessing that's like below 1%. And so we also have agreement from the applicant that in the event that they're compliant with it and there's unforeseen situations of, intense light bleed, just not understood through all the traditional ways that we do this, that they would make a good faith effort with the landlord to make that investment to fix that and light that. So I feel pretty comfortable in that. And this is all Planning Commission purview, Typically that's all hashed out with our planning department, the Planning Commission, and those issues are addressed. The dumpster is a little bit part of the operating thing, because I think the placement of it, what we don't know is this might be the only place that they can put the dumpster, right? Dumpsters are very challenging because you have to have trucks come in, pull them out, and you could say, oh, well, here's a better location. And then you miss that discussion at the planning department, says, well, now, this is going to put pedestrians at risk because now the truck has to back out or do this or whatever. So there's always other things that they go through, and this might be, the best possible spot for everybody involved except for maybe the adjacent homeowner, right? I mean, that's the crux of it. But I think the nuisance part of it, if this becomes a nuisance, and it's not locked down, and it's not cleaned, and it's not managed, and it's not emptied twice a week, and all of that, I think then there's some enforceable measures here. And I do take the applicant's word that, I mean, they don't want to have a smelly, awful situation either. That's bad for business, it's bad for Crispelli's, it's bad for this as well. So we have to put a little faith in the Planning Department, Planning Commission that this isn't, they typically don't want to put dumpsters near neighborhoods, right? If it's a commercial district next to I mean, that's just generally, we avoid that most of the time unless it's, physically impossible to do it any other way. But those are my thoughts on it. Commissioner Macy.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I think with you, Mayor. I mean, I think I understand about wanting to see it on the site plan, but would it ever appear on the site plan if it's not actually on this property, like it's on this adjacent property? And so I'm sort of less concerned about that, and I really appreciate having the neighbors come out and speak really reasonably about their concerns and explaining them to us in a way that we can then ask intelligent questions or semi-intelligent questions about them. But I didn't hear the neighbor. I mean, obviously they don't want the dumpster there. I can see that. But she wasn't like, it must be moved at all costs. She's like, this needs to be locked and it needs to be, emptied twice a week. We need to make sure that's enforceable. I just do want to clarify, because the fact that it's, supposed to be locked and supposed to have this water line that you can wash it with is in the plan of operation. And I didn't hear them say like, oh yeah, we're definitely doing that. It's in the plan of operation. It was kind of like, well, we'll see how it goes. So I want to be clear that those things are enforceable, the things that they did put in the plan of operation. And that seems to be what would be addressing the neighbors' concerns. In terms of the light bleed, while I trust the Fussy Planning Commission, I do wonder, because of the way that this property is set up, I mean, it's like, this parking lot is like slam bang right next to a house and a yard. And what she was saying was that, like, because her yard is underneath this light, even though it's lower than it used to be, that it could still be quite bright. So I think I did hear in that case that they're willing to talk to the landlord and address that issue. I think it might go above and beyond what the light bleed concerns that one would normally have about that, like, because it is pointed down, so maybe the light bleed is fine, but it's still blinding if you're in your backyard and it's like, 5 feet away. So I feel like I heard their response for that and for the parking, and I think if we put the parking piece in here, that would be satisfactory. And then the things about the dumpster, I don't know that there's anything we can do to move it, as the mayor has noted, but I just do want to emphasize that the things like the locking and the washing and the twice a week emptying, that's part of it.
Commissioner Douglas.
Someone more knowledgeable than I can correct me here, but I do not believe our ordinances require a water source attached to dumpsters for cleaning. I may have missed something along the way.
It's in the plan of operation. It's in every plan of operation that we have for a liquor license.
It is? Yeah. Water source for all dumpsters? Really? All right, thank you.
And I'll also note too on the lighting, I mean, this is Main Street. You've had businesses here for many, many years. From a lighting point of view, you do need to light the parking lots, right? For safety, health and safety reasons. I mean, that's always a challenging thing being up against the commercial district. So, but to the best possible extent that it won't bleed in. And I think our ordinances mostly address that, but there could be a unique circumstance here that we want to do our very best to shield it and cooperate with the neighbor. But we do have to have the parking lot illuminated. I mean, whether that's a law firm, a restaurant, a bar, whatever it is, if there's an active business there, it has to be illuminated to our code and our standard for a commercial business too. Okay. Anybody else? Commissioner Colo?
Okay, I'll move approval of the plan of operation with the stipulation that the parking is changed to the satisfaction of the city attorney
And police department.
and police department.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Colo, supported by, or seconded by Commissioner Chisholm. All right, discussion. Commissioner Chisholm.
I just want to say that I am very excited about this menu. Having I've lived in the Northeast for a long time in my life, and so seafood is something I really value, so I'm glad to have this come in. But I do think, to the neighbor's point about seafood in the dumpster outside their backyard, definitely have empathy for that. So I think you heard the importance of that here, so I support the motion.
Commissioner Hunt.
I'll just say I'm excited for this restaurant as well. Reactivating that area that, once was a very popular restaurant, and now it's, getting some new life to it. And I appreciate the willingness to work with the community and the neighbors in hearing their concerns and, changing whatever is necessary in order to keep the residents happy or the neighbors happy in that area. But like Commissioner Chisholm stated earlier, just making sure that you know what's in your plan and abiding by it, I think is extremely important here. So just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'll just add, I think it's a great concept. You've done an amazing job with Beppe Crispelli's, your land partner. They've done an amazing job. And it's good to get and breathe life back into this and not see it completely torn down and, something different. It's still, the in place, we understand the situation there, but now we have a new era coming in there. And I think it'll be really nice and really spot on with the neighborhood and the folks there that will just walk to the place. So I think that's a really important thing to note. We've addressed the parking. I believe that will help alleviate some of those issues, and it's codified in the operation. The other two, we've talked a lot about it. There's definitely things we can enforce, but I'll always add that there's always, when you're a liquor, and you know this, Beppe, when you're a liquor license holder and when you're a building operator in the city of Royal Oak, there's always something you need, right? So if those things aren't being taken care of to the satisfaction, that could hinder, the ability for something else in the future. So I'm just saying that you're going to do your best. I know you are. And in the event that, we're struggling, there's always, the city always has options to work with you to resolve any of those issues. So I feel confident that we don't, have a problem here until we see the complete and finished product. And then I'm almost certain we'll be satisfied with it. But if not, I'm confident the applicant will work with us and work with the neighbors if there's more to do. So, all right. With that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, good luck. All right, that brings us down to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to pull anything off the consent agenda? All right. Does anyone wish to make a motion on the consent agenda? Commissioner Chisholm.
I'll move approval.
We have a motion by Commissioner Chisholm. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Macy. Discussion on the consent agenda. With none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. That brings us to number 9, approval of the 2025 Traffic Committee resolutions. City Engineer Donahue is poised and ready.
Yes, good evening. Tonight I'm here to present recommendations from our September 23rd Traffic Committee meeting. I have 4 proposed resolutions for you tonight. The first item, which is illustrated here on the screen, we had a request for a person with autism sign. This is on East Kenilworth at Delaware Avenue. The requester has a child, age 13, and did provide the diagnosis information from the doctor. Staff, just so you know, generally we recommend against these signs. They generally are proven to provide little benefit and can provide a false sense of security. In the past, and with this one as well, the committee generally goes against our recommendation and recommends that we install these types of signs. We certainly don't see there being any harm to installing it. It's just, as standard practice, we usually recommend against. So the resolution provided tonight does recommend installation of this one sign here at the corner of Kenilworth and Delaware. Okay, our second item, this is a simple request just to clarify parking restrictions and improve sight distance. This is the intersection of North Connecticut at Red Run, so just north of 12 Mile. Here, we're trying to get people to prevent parking too close to this crosswalk that crosses Red Run Drive. There's often cars parked right up against it, and it can be really hard for a car on Red Run to see if cars are coming southbound, if they can make that turn or not. So we have some signage here, one just to keep people kind of with a parking sign pushed further away from the intersection. And then secondly, we observed that there's currently a stop sign kind of where this yellow one is, which is very far away from the intersection. There used to be a giant tree there, which is now gone. So we're recommending that we relocate the stop sign much closer to the intersection so it makes a little more sense. It's kind of a kooky intersection when you drive it. So hopefully that will bring a little more clarity to this location. The third item that we have is related to on-street parking. This is on Albert Avenue between Coolidge and Woodward. This is a street that has several multifamily buildings where the street parking here is very heavily used. The road is quite narrow. It can only accommodate parking on one side of the street, and there's only sidewalk on one side of the street due to that narrow right-of-way. Currently, cars can park on the north side of the road, and that's what we're illustrating here in the top image. So where there's a green line, that's where you can park, and then all the red areas are where you cannot park currently. Along that green line, there is like a hill area next to the parked vehicles, so it can be difficult to open passenger doors, also difficult to access cars unless you walk in the road to get there. So the request here was to move the parking to the south side of the street. Again, that's where the sidewalk is. So the lower image here would show where parking would be allowed and restricted if we did want to swap where people can park. It does provide better access to the cars. Just with the sidewalk being there, you have a route to get to cars. They're not really walking in the road as much. You have more of an incentive to be on the sidewalk. And also, is a little bit easier for people to get into their cars without a hill being in the way. The downside here is, though, that as passengers open their car doors, they are opening it out onto the public sidewalk. And so there is a little bit of a risk with that. That's probably why, when this was done, probably in the 1960s or so, that's probably why it was signed this way. Committee did feel that parking on the south side would be better for access to the parked cars, and that cars swinging over the sidewalk would be a relatively low-risk outcome if we change the signs here. At the meeting, we had 5 people attend. 4 of them were in favor of changing the parking here. We did have one speaker opposed to it who was also here at public comment tonight. The committee did recommend that we move forward with swapping the signs there and allowing for parking on the south side of the road. And then our final item here is related to the existing berm diverters around Lawson Park. In June of 2024, we were talking about on-street parking concerns just in this general neighborhood. And we were really focused on East Parent Avenue here at the north end of Lawson Park. We paved that road this year by special assessment, and there were lots of concerns about where are people going to park? Are they going to start blocking driveways now that it's paved? And so we came up with some concepts for off-street parking there, which we currently have programmed in the CIP, not for a few years yet, but we do have a plan there to add 10 more spaces of off-street parking for this area. But as we were talking about that, the commission also said, why don't we look at these berms again and see, should we do something here to improve traffic flow around the neighborhood? And also maybe if we remove berms, we could open up more parking for people trying to visit the park here. And so staff was directed, when time was available, which it did take us a little time to get to this one, to look at this and study it again. As you probably know, there's 6 berms in the neighborhood at the south end of town here. This directive was really just to look at these 3. So we numbered them 1, 2, and 3 just for discussion purposes. Back in 2018, all 6 berms were studied. We did a very detailed traffic study and a very almost too complicated neighborhood survey to see where people were going, what routes they took, and how those routes would change if these berms were removed. The ultimate recommendation from the consultant back in 2018 was that we could remove all the berms. It wouldn't cause a traffic issue. Also at the time, the neighborhood came forward and provided pretty strong opposition to removal of any of the berms. And back then, the commission voted to make no changes, leave everything in place. Since then, of course, Lawson Park has been upgraded, I think about 3 or 4 years ago. The berms have all been beautified with new landscaping, and there has been some multifamily housing developments in the area as well. So the neighborhood is changing a little bit in this area. Considering the results from our 2018 study, it overwhelmingly demonstrated that removal of the berms isn't going to cause a traffic issue. We didn't really feel like it was a good use of city funds to restudy and do that work again. If we have level of services of A and B, like we're not going to have failing intersections. The neighborhood has not changed that much. So we did not invest in a very expensive traffic study with the consultant. We also have I-696 under construction. So even if we took traffic counts here, probably would not be very representative and certainly would be questioned. So instead we focused on the neighborhood. We wanted to hear from the neighbors, see if opinions had changed over the years. So we surveyed the neighborhood surrounding Lawson Park. So this would be south of Harrison, and we went from Batavia to Mohawk, just to get like the neighbors in the nearby vicinity, get their feedback on these berms. And then we also put signs up in the park itself with QR codes to see what do visitors think, and we tracked those separately to see if there was a difference in opinion. We received 149 responses. Very, very similar responses, whether you were a visitor or a person that lived here. In fact, almost every visitor was a Royal Oak resident. So it was a pretty unanimous response, regardless of whether it was neighborhood or visitor. So 2/3 of respondents did not want the berms removed. 1/3 were in favor of removing all three. And it was pretty much keep them all or remove them all. People weren't really picking and choosing one or two. Removing the berms here would help with traffic trying to circulate in the neighborhood, especially as you look for parking. I put, again, green lines just kind of showing where you can park in the neighborhood. It's only on one side of the street, so if you're trying to drive around and there isn't a spot, it is a headache to go all the way north and find your way back down again to find parking. So you could open a berm to potentially help with that. Opening intersections would create more conflict points between vehicles and pedestrians, but of course, pretty much every park in Royal Oak is like that. We have 4 intersections around most of our parks with stop signs for crossing the road. From a park user point of view, if any of the berms are removed, we thought that removal of number 2, would be the simplest way to help promote increased and improved traffic flow and access to parking around the park. There is a significant cost to do that, however, to remove the berm, and then we would want to see that road paved, not turned into gravel. Gravel, as you know, leads to a lot of dust, which you probably don't want right next to a basketball court. And so that's why the cost is pretty significant there at $160,000. Like, that's a ballpark, but just to give you a sense of order of magnitude. At the traffic meeting, we had 18 people attend. They all spoke in opposition to removal. We didn't have anyone in favor. We also received emails ahead of time, like the day of, for people that couldn't attend. 7 were opposed, and we did have 1 person who was in favor of removal. When we talked about it at the committee level, after all the public comment, there was a lot of mixed opinions on this, and we had a split vote, which, as you probably know, is kind of unusual for our committee. We heard that the berms add an interesting character to the neighborhood, that removal of the berms without neighborhood support and doing so at a high cost just didn't make sense. So those were kind of the opposing side. Other members felt that the berms would currently prevent efficient traffic flow and that they are unfairly creating an exclusive environment just for that neighborhood. We also discussed, is this really a parking issue? Is this a traffic flow issue? What are we hearing for the neighborhood? I can say at a staff level, we've heard about parking complaints in the past. We don't hear about it so much anymore. I don't know that I've ever heard people complaining about not being able to drive around the neighborhood. So that's my observations over the years here. Where am I? I did want to point out, if this is focused on parking, we have the 10 spots allocated for future construction. If this is more about traffic flow, then looking at these berms and removing them is something you may want to consider. So after a lot of back and forth, ultimately the committee voted 3-2, and they're recommending removal of berm number 2. And so that's the resolution that you have in your packet this evening.
All right. It's a lot to process all at once. Questions? We can start maybe from the top. Does anyone have questions on item A? Commissioner Colo.
I believe item A was the sign, correct?
Correct.
Ms. Ahi, you did mention that you have been against these signs, and or not you, but the industry standards have been against these signs, and while we don't recommend them, we usually do go with them. So knowing that you were against it, and you would not have recommended a sign, is there a different type of sign you would have recommended besides this one, if you were to have made a recommendation in the first place?
I don't think so. Warning signs are always a little touchy, like do they really have an impact? So I don't think that there's different wording that we could put here. We normally actually have child with autism. The petitioner really felt strongly that she wanted person with autism for their child because they were kind of a young adult at age 13, so we went back and forth on the verbiage. But in general, I think our position would be the same. We hear the same thing for blind people, for deaf people. We generally have that same recommendation based on industry standards.
Okay, so then the verbiage is, you're fine with this verbiage then?
I'm okay, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions on A? Okay, let's move.
I move approval of A.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Colo. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Douglas. All right, discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, item B. This seemed to be pretty simple. Commissioner Cheatham?
I'll move approval of B.
A motion by Commissioner Cheatham. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Herzog. Discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, C. I have some questions on C. Commissioner Macy.
Thank you as always for this excellent report. On C, what's the parking stall number difference?
So this is if you were to stripe it to standards, right? A 23-foot long stall with 20-foot stalls at each end, like you would on a downtown street. People park closer than that, so I think one petitioner said, or one resident said that they counted way more than what we came up with. So if I laid it out, it was 23 spots on the, it was 21 spots on the north side and 23 on the south side. And then the fire department was like, hey, we want 20 feet by these 2 driveways. So that basically made it a wash, maybe 1 spot more on the south side, roughly the same. So in terms of number of spaces and cars that you could fit on that street, it's about the same either side.
So this is interesting because you have Woodward, right, which is the divided highway. Then you have Coolidge, which is kind of divided in a way.
Like physically.
So people are parking on the north side of the street. Are they coming off Woodward and parking there? Or are they coming off all directions, turning around in a driveway, doing a 3-point turn and parking in the street? Or if we move it to the south side, are we going to see a different, and I don't know that you studied this, but in your experience in this area, because I don't want to say, is that a concern, is maybe my first question.
We did not study the traffic counts in terms of direction of travel, how many cars in each direction, so I really can't comment on that, if people are going to make 3-point turns or not. As you know, if people want the spot, they're going to do what they got to do to get it. So there probably will be some 3-point turns or people driving, through the parking lot, come out at the other end and turn themselves around that way. But I think you could say the same thing happens now, right? So it's just if we don't know where it's all coming from. Yeah.
Without knowing. Yeah. Because I would think more people would come off Woodward, but it's also, you could only really hit that street, going south. North, you'd have to loop around, maybe you go a different route. But people will definitely if you're not coming off Coolidge, will do the 3-point turn. There was a question about a petition. Maybe I didn't quite understand this or I missed it, and I apologize in your report. How did this come to the traffic committee?
So anything that comes to the traffic committee requires that the requester fill out a form and that they have 2 people support it, just so we know that there's some buy-in and not just one person kind of out alone. And normally, when there's a parking change request, like, permit parking or change what parking is allowed on like a residential street, we will do a petition. We want to see buy-in from the neighborhood. In this case, I made the decision, like, I don't know how a petitioner is going to go to every single one of these units and get buy-in, and if they don't, do they just lose their chance to talk about this? So our resolution for that was, let's evaluate this from our own perspective, put a report together, and mail every single one of those people, give them the chance to come and speak on the issue or email us, ask questions. And honestly, we were a little surprised that we had 5 people show up, which is kind of unusual at the traffic committee level for that. So that was why we did it. We didn't think it was reasonable for a petitioner to have to circulate to that many people.
And how would you articulate the benefit to the neighborhood, and how would you articulate the benefit to the overall public making the change?
Well, to the neighborhood, I think it's you are more likely to walk on the sidewalk to get to your car,
Yep.
as opposed to being out in the road. So I think it's a safety issue for pedestrians trying to walk to a vehicle. To the public at large, unless you use this parking, I don't think it impacts you one way or the other. Either you never drive on Albert because you have no reason to, or unfortunately you use it as a cut through to get to the hospital.
Well, you could argue that you'll have less people walking in the street, and so therefore you might have, you might not have to slow down as much. You might not collide with a human being, which is always the preferred thing to avoid. And then I know that it's interesting because you're trading one problem for another, because on the south side, you open up the passenger door and it will go over the sidewalk, but how many cars typically have passengers and all? I mean, it's, the odds seem lower that there's going to be a door pedestrian collision versus a car pedestrian collision, the way it's set up today. Okay, I'm understanding it a little bit better. Commissioner Colo.
If you're designing this road today, where would you put the parking?
Oh, good question. I think I would put it on the south side. And again, it's just because of a walking route for pedestrians. I don't love it either way. Like, this is an unfortunate street with a 30-foot wide right-of-way that you have to do the best that you can with. But I think the south side wins by like a very narrow margin. It's not a very obvious choice in my opinion.
Thank you.
Commissioner Herzog.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the traffic committee, how they help you make decisions, how they help us make decisions, what the group looks like? Can you just tell us a little bit how the traffic committee works?
Sure. So the committee is typically made up of 7 members. We're a little short now, and I think we had an absence that night, so we only had 5 people voting on this one. But the committee meets 6 times a year, so we meet on the odd numbered months. And we, as a staff, put together, we get requests through the online forum, as I mentioned, with some support. We do whatever traffic study is necessary for the potential issue, write up a report, and then about a month before the meeting, we have an internal staff meeting with DPS, fire, police, and planning. Get their thoughts, make sure we didn't miss anything from our own perspective compared to theirs. Finalize our report. Then we notify anyone that made the request that this is going to be on a certain agenda, give them, a link so that they can go see our write-up online. And we also send that to our traffic committee members about 2 weeks before the meeting, so they have a chance to digest it as well. And then we hold the traffic committee meeting. There's public comment on each individual item, so people can come and speak when we're talking about that item. It's semi-formal, so we let them speak, and then we do close that and just bring it to the committee side of the table. They'll discuss. If they have questions for me, I'll certainly answer those. We also have a police representative there to comment on any safety issues with regard to police enforcement. So we'll chat about it at the table. That's a little more informal, and then ultimately motion for whatever their recommendation is.
Okay, and the committee is made up, they're appointed,
They are appointed volunteers that live in the city.
That they live in the city. And when a decision is made, that decision is like how our decisions here at the table are made. They become one decision and not an individual's decision.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Commissioner Hunt.
Thank you for your presentation here this evening. I want to touch on the fire department's input. I understand that they require this 20-foot before the drive, and that may be their policy. With regards to this particular plan, they took a look at the proposed new map and approved where the non-parking would be. Did they have any other input with regard to this particular proposal?
They didn't have any other concerns or comments, and honestly, no one else at the table thought about that. To get a fire truck into that circle drive, they were going to need a little bit more room to swing. So I was glad that they gave us that input. But aside from that, again, it was like either I'm moving to this side of the road or I'm moving to that side of the road so I don't hit a car to respond.
So with regards to fire, if the parking stayed on the north side, there was no issue at that point?
Correct. I don't think anyone has an issue if it stays the way it is or if it changes. Like, again, it's like a narrow margin. So we kind of went with what the people were asking for, and we heard, I guess, more people in favor of the change than opposed.
Great. Thank you.
Commissioner Cheatham.
I recall, I don't remember where I saw it in the materials, but there was an issue on the north side about like a slope, the hill, so it was difficult to open car doors. And so I think one thought, always thinking about accessibility and folks aging, I can imagine if someone's in a passenger side who has limited mobility, that might be more challenging for them to get out of the car versus when it's over a sidewalk, although the door may perilously knock over a pedestrian at that time. Is that?
That's correct, yeah. And also just getting to your car. There isn't, like I said, a great way to do it. There's a wall on the north side along that parking lot, so you can't just walk out from your house or your unit directly to your car. You kind of have to go out to the driveway where traffic is, out into the road where traffic is to get to your car door. And if you're a passenger, then you have to climb a hill to open a door to get into it. So
That's actually really reminiscent, if the commission recalls, when we looked at sidewalks and I advocated for a little patch near Northwood Elementary School. It was a very similar circumstance that the sidewalk kind of ended. It was a hill and kids and families are kind of spilling into the street. And since we put that patch of sidewalk in, it's really nice to see people using it and there's just fewer people walking in the street. So I just bring that parallel to this situation as well, that I think it could have an impact on fewer people getting into the street, as well as just ease for passengers to get out of the car.
Commissioner Colo.
Okay, we've talked about this a lot. I take it when I hear Ms. Steiner say this is how she would design it in the first place, I would go with that. I do understand the person who came out tonight that this is maybe not what they want to hear, but it seems to be what's in the best interest of those in the community and what would be the best design. So I move approval.
Motion by Commissioner Colo. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Cheatham. Discussion. It's one of these decisions that's sort of 6 of one, half dozen of the other, with a small feather tilting the scale here a little bit. I'd say the can't recall too many complaints about parking on the north, right? We did have a petition. Obviously, there's a petition for a reason. It looks to be safer on the south side for the berms and for the pedestrians that are walking in the street to get to their cars today. I think the net parking is nominal in terms of the change in the number of parking spots. So it's kind of one of these ones that are 50-50 with a little bit maybe edging towards moving it to the south. So not ideal. The road's not designed ideal. All right. Any other discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Okay. D, the berms. All right. Commissioner Macy.
Okay, let's start. I want to thank Engineer Donahue for bringing this week. This is a very full circle moment for me because this was one of the first controversial things that I had to deal with as a commissioner, these exact same berms, and it is when I learned the word berm so many years ago. I was surprised to see it coming up again, and I was surprised to hear you say tonight that we requested it. I'm like, why did we request it? Because it doesn't seem like a lot has changed in the time period, and so I commend you for not wasting money and doing another traffic study, which would definitely have been discounted given what's going on in 696. It doesn't seem to me like there has been any significant change in this neighborhood, other than the park is much more attractive now. Something I'm very aware of, this is not in my neighborhood, but it is the best basketball court in town, so we are there very regularly to drop my son off to play basketball. And so I'm familiar with the parking issues around there. I'm familiar with the traffic issues around there. To me, it's just, there's no compelling reason to get rid of them, and it's expensive, and nobody wants it. I mean, not nobody, I'm sorry, but 2/3 of the neighbors don't want it. And so, it seems like the staff summary at the traffic committee said all the things I want to say. To me, I don't understand why we'd be looking at this again and beating our heads against this same small berm wall. And especially, we've just recently improved them, which I don't understand why we would, it seems like we're like, yeah, we're going to keep them, we're going to invest in them, and then we'll look at them again a couple years later. So, next month you all can do what you want, but for today, I'm going to say that we should keep the berms, at least for now. I don't see enough has changed in the interim.
Commissioner Douglas.
And I'm going to take the opposite approach. So who among us does not want to live on a dead-end street and have their street protected from traffic? And yet we live in a city that is a city with a grid. And the through streets and the grid, the distribution of vehicles benefits the entire community. And certainly the people whose streets are affected are not going to be happy about that. And I've been clear about this from the beginning, that I think all of these berms should be removed. And the data that Ms. Donahue brings us that says that the efforts, certainly the nature of this, the land uses here have changed. The industrial uses have disappeared almost completely. The truck routes that do still exist, people are following the preferred route, which is to take them to Woodward if they do have to go to some of the industrial uses on the western side of this. Again, it may be a cost item. I mean, I may not be willing to spend that money, and I'm not running for re-election, so it's super easy for me to say this, but if it came to it, I would remove all these berms.
Anybody else? Whoa, some active hands down here. Let's go with Commissioner Herzog.
I have a question first before I get into discussion. How did you determine what the neighborhood was?
So we did want to look kind of in the adjacent vicinity, and I realized we could have done the whole city, we could have gone all the way to Campbell. I do love my clerks, and I kind of wanted to help them a little bit and not turn it into 1,000 notices. So we decided to keep it close so that we could hear the people that would be affected most. If we remove these berms, they're the people that live right there or within a block of it. And then we said, okay, if a lot of people are coming from elsewhere, from further to the east or west, wherever, they'll still have the opportunity to give us their thoughts. If they're coming to this park, then we want to hear from them because they had to deal with these berms in some way or another to get here. And so we hoped that we would accomplish that by having the QR codes in the park as well, just to get a little bit more of a spread. And like I said, it didn't end up mattering. They were very similar response types across the board.
Yeah. So I feel like I live in this neighborhood. I live 10 in Maine, and I feel that the neighborhood, this is my one personal resident opinion, is really 10 Mile, Main Street, Lincoln, Campbell, because all of these folks are trying to go through this neighborhood in different ways. Going to Oakland Elementary, people coming to Holiday Market, people coming to the park. And so one of the questions, why I actually came here was the Lawson Park Home Association or Neighborhood Association came to the city and said, hey, we have an issue with parking, and the conversation came around safety. And so having small children that also come to this park a lot, and I walk this neighborhood every day, is this intersection here with Parent and Irving, and how that curves around. And there's a stop sign, and you're supposed to stop there. But because there is no oncoming traffic, no one stops. I mean, every time I'm a one person, so there's no traffic study. I'm just talking about my one experience, and I'm an engineer, so I understand that Doesn't mean much. But I just want to say my personal experience is that people don't stop there. And so that is pretty dangerous, especially because there's a basketball court and balls are rolling and throwing. And so when I am there with other people, I hear a lot about safety, and we heard about safety at that night. We heard about safety at an association meeting that was held at the senior center. We've heard from neighbors about how fast people are going in there and wanting to have berms in that area. And so, or not berms, speed humps, or chicane tonight came out. And so why we came up with this berm idea during that discussion over a year ago was if we took out 1 and 2, you would have to have a stop sign. So you're coming off the freeway, you stop. Then you drive, you stop. Because you might have incoming traffic. Now, I'm not a traffic engineer, so this is just me having ideas. And so that's why we were we hear from the neighborhood saying, we have a parking issue, we have a traffic issue, or a safety issue, and so we're trying to address that. Now, we don't know, now the neighborhood's saying, we don't want the berms out, and I understand, they don't want the berms out, and maybe we put in parking. I'm on the Six Rivers Land Conservancy Board, I'm not in favor of taking away parkland for parking spaces. So this to me seemed like a great option. Maybe we'll get a couple extra cars, but we'll definitely get those stops for safety. I did talk to a lot of residents. It was mixed bag. You're right, Holly. Some people wanted them removed, some people want them to stay. What I did hear, though, from people who wanted them to stay, there was an agreement that since 1980, this neighborhood has drastically changed and is going to continue to change. So we have a recycling center that's not in this scope that is up for sale that is going to change. We have a new development up by Holiday Market. We have the new development on Lincoln and Troy, and there's just going to be more people driving through this area. I mean, residents driving on residential roads. And so this might come up a couple of times while this neighborhood is expanding and changing in a different way than it has since 1980. And I think that it is responsible for us to think about traffic moving, safety, parking, all of those things when they come up. And especially if the neighborhood has requested us to look at it, we should probably look at it and have this conversation. Now, I agree, maybe the cost of it, the timing of it, maybe we need to have a different look. Maybe we have to engage a bigger neighborhood. Maybe the time is not right now. But I think that looking at this is really important. I also want to point out that we have a traffic committee, and we have all these boards and commissions that help us make decisions. And they are all residents and they are all volunteers. And the only way we can get people to engage with us and engage in their community is if we respect them. And we don't really feel respected. I feel like we've talked about that a lot, but we signed up for it. We were elected. We raised money for it. We did some. But when you're a volunteer and you're trying to just better your community, and then you're kind of slammed for the time that you're given, I want to just take a moment to thank those boards and commissions that spend their time trying to make their communities better, even if people don't agree. And okay, so I'm getting off the soapbox now and send it over to my colleague.
Commissioner Colo.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with almost just about everything that's been said about this already, from Commissioner Macy to Commissioner Douglas, Commissioner Herzog, and that's a lot of different viewpoints, right? Because these berms, this neighborhood has a lot going on for it. We have, it's crazy. I guess I should start off by saying this. It was just election season, and someone went around telling the neighborhood, I would absolutely take out the berms. So I want to make it clear, I'm voting tonight to keep the berms. I think they belong. People spread lies. I guess that's just how some people operate. But I think that it's important that, we think about these as a holistic community too, right? When we first talked about these berms and why they might or should go with number 2 and 1 there, it was because of safety in the park, and Commissioner Herzog talked about it. especially at that T intersection. People blow through it all the time. We've been there with our kids watching people just go straight through it, and they don't stop. And we've had multiple residents come to us, over the last 4 years. I can think of a handful of times where we've had action requested from us to change some part of Irving and Parent there, from crosswalks to stop signs to additional sign pollution to more crosswalks to different signs. Like, we've had a lot of requests to make safety changes here, and we've kind of been going at it one at a time. We've not really been going at it as a holistic view, and I think that's kind of what we're missing to make any change here. Commissioner Macy mentioned that when she first started, one of the first things she heard for the first time was a berm. Something I heard for the first time was charrette way back when we did a charrette for Normandy Oaks and how we would design and make Normandy Oaks look. And that we got a lot of buy-in from the community on what it could look like, what it should look like, what we would like and what we wouldn't like. So if we were to ever change this area of the city, I think what we really need to do is get buy-in from everyone, show people what it could look like without just saying, we're taking this away. Yeah, but then what? If we take it away, what do we add instead? Because I live a quarter mile from this. I didn't get a survey. I was just outside the zone. But if you live right next to it, of course you don't want it to go, like Commissioner Douglas said. You think of the immediate change to what's around you. I think that there is potential for change of some sort at some time. I don't know what that is, though, without seeing what other options could be. Because we talked about using the fields. If you're going north on Longfellow and you can't find a parking spot, there's a half mile you have to truck around before you can come back and try to come around to park on the other side of the park. It's completely cut off. So it is a long trek to get around to the park. So having some sort of throughway through. And just looking at the neighborhood in general, if you want to get to Main Street, you have to go up to Lincoln. If you do want to get to, if children in the neighborhood, these are all Oakland kids, want to go connect with their peers down the road, they cannot drive there. Their parents can't drive them there without going on a main road, even though they're all in the same neighborhood with back roads at one point connected. So I do think there's something to think about. Just a couple more points really quick. Commissioner Macy, I encourage your son to use Lockman Park also. They have a really nice basketball court that's the exact same as Lawson Park here. Because we've put $23 million into parks since 2020. We put $23 million in parks, so these upgrades are all over the city. We talk about Lawson a lot. I think maybe because the slide's so tall and so grand, but a lot of these upgrades have happened. And we've upgraded 92 miles of road also since 2020. I mean, there's been a lot of upgrades going on. And we keep on circling back to this park and these berms. So I guess I'll direct a question to the city manager. Earlier this year in the budget process, we talked about complete streets and what we could do to actually look at this holistically. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I actually think complete streets is a pretty good fit for the conversations we've had tonight, from A to D. In A, we talked about, for complete streets is a bird's eye view. It's a plan where the city would take a bird's eye view at the street network, and you're really examining the network for multimodal and accessibility improvements, for traffic calming improvements, and so on and so forth. The city did adopt a plan in 2012. That plan is dated. We've talked about changes in context that have occurred throughout the communities. So when I look at tonight's docket, in number A, you're talking about traffic communication, essentially. B, you're talking about traffic calming. C talks about traffic patterns as well, in a changing of context as Corwell has expanded and as that area has developed. We've had a change in context. And here we're talking about, in changing context as well, we're talking about themes of accessibility to park assets or public assets. So those things, lead me to conclude that the Complete Streets Plan, which would be a process where we would petition for an RFQ for a qualified traffic management firm and mobility firm to come in and conduct that Complete Streets update from 2012, which, to my knowledge, we aren't currently actively implementing as it is at the moment, would be a really good vessel to do this. And then doing so would then take a look at this particular area, but within the broader context of changes that have occurred, also changes that are articulated in the master land use plan. The master land use plan itself talks about a changing context. You're talking about corridor changes, focusing on density on the corridors. It talks about neighborhood nodes and really looking at how we might redevelop neighborhood nodes with small businesses. It talks about green trails, better connecting neighborhoods to the downtowns through a trail system. All of those are functions of Complete Streets, and Complete Streets seems like the appropriate vessel to tie all these conversations together. It also provides a data-centric, data-oriented approach that is going to include public engagement in the charrette process, which is all pretty common. So this could be an example of one of the charrettes or specific engagement points that you could include in the scope.
We'll go with Commissioner Cheatham, then Commissioner Herzog.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so I also came into this meeting feeling like these berms should not be removed at this time, that I didn't feel that there was a compelling argument to override the views of the immediate residents. There wasn't this broader community. I didn't see evidence put forth so far of a broader community benefit. Also, having put in a lot of time recently on the Safe Routes to School initiative, which is all about improving safety for pedestrians and cyclists across our city, I was really, really hard pressed to remove something that does calm traffic. Perhaps not effectively at this one particular intersection, but I would really want to see strong evidence. The data from 2018. I think we would need an update after 696 is completed. If we're going to do bigger changes, we'd need more updated data. On the point of data and on the point of volunteers that you mentioned before, with the Safe Routes to School, we had 45 volunteers working to do audits, and we have so far audited 300 blocks of Royal Oak using the ARP walkability audit. So this is like citizens coming together to collect data that we can use to support a Complete Streets initiative. We're still working on this, so I think we'll probably have 500 blocks audited near our schools. That would be really amazing data. We've also been collecting just areas of concern from residents through a survey, through emails to me, and even scanning through social media posts and collecting those. So we have a lot of information that myself with Jill Martin and some students from Oakland University have been pulling together. And so I'm really excited about how that Safe Routes to School initiative could really segue nicely to a Complete Streets, where we can really look comprehensively at our city and improving walkability, improving bikeability, and really thinking about strategically about how we want to move traffic through the city. And so for me, it's really premature to remove these berms at this point. I also just learned the word berm with this as well. So, but I think it's premature at this point, and so I would not support that at this time.
So my question is for Joe about the Complete Streets. That is it's citywide. It's not just for this area. This area could be impacted, but it's really for the entire city. Yep. Okay, great. Because while I do love my neighborhood so much, there are other points in the city that have challenges that we really do need to address before probably these berms. So I think that this maybe route of doing the Complete Streets is probably the best strategy for us.
Commissioner Hahn?
Well, I think I came into the meeting with the Complete Streets initiative in mind, knowing that I think, at least with this particular project, there needed to be a more holistic and comprehensive look at the neighborhoods, the streets in general. I don't live in this neighborhood, although I do travel it quite often. And for some reason, I feel compelled to stop at that little, see, I've never seen anybody ever, just go straight through it. But in line with what, Commissioner Macy stated, $160,000 is a lot for something that the neighborhood doesn't necessarily want. And there was, effort taken to enhance these recently. So I think in line with my colleagues here, I am in favor of keeping them for the time being while we take a look as a whole at the streets in our neighborhoods.
I just want to add, I respect our traffic committee. It was a 3-2 vote. It was a split vote. So this was also a challenge for them when they were discussing it. And there were 2 members absent, or 2 members of the board of 7 not there. That could have easily been 4-3. We don't know. I think for me, the status quo has been the same way for decades. And unless you can provide an articulable benefit that says, hey, by removing these berms at a cost of $160,000 and with, certainly a negative impact to the neighborhood outside of traffic, right? Because these things are different from traffic. If you could articulate to me that there's safety benefit, there's all these other benefits, we don't have that. There's no articulable benefit that I can see that's worth spending the money, or even if it didn't cost anything, you change it. We're saying, okay, traffic flow would be better based on 2018. Okay, well what are the traffic counts now? We have 696 under construction, all that, but since COVID, people's travel patterns are way different, right? So we'd have to go and take a look at it again regardless in that regard. But even then, we say traffic flow for who? For who? And I can tell you that for who, it's the people that live in this neighborhood, that live more in the broader neighborhoods, right? And everybody, I would imagine, I can't say everybody, but a vast majority of people, especially as this place changes, as these condominiums go up and these new residential developments go up, they bought and purchased their home knowing that there were the berms there, knowing that the route to their home was going to be convoluted a little bit, or if they needed to go somewhere different, they'd have to. Even me, I bought my home, I don't want to say, I feel old now, but I bought it many years ago and these berms were in place, and I get people going on Alexander because they come off the highway, they come off 75 now off 11 and down my street, and they speed, and they do all the things that everybody hates. But the neighborhood has, they've been here. I can't articulate a status why we'd want to change the status quo. The cost is, we just put money into them. We just invested in them. There's nothing here compelling to say, well, if this were an old abandoned bank and we could bring housing in, much needed housing into our community and spruce up a property and make it beautiful and nice, I would say, okay, that's an articulable benefit to our community as a whole. I can't see it here with the berms. I can't see removing them and understanding that benefit. I can't see anybody who's impacted by them positively or negatively knew that when they purchased their home, at least unless you've been living in your home 70 years or 50 years, 40 some years. That's the case. We do have certainly park features down there that have been put in that are great, and it attracts people and all that, and parking can be a complication and whatnot. But frankly, my son goes there to play basketball all the time with Commissioner Macy's son quite often, and all the kids in that neighborhood. And he crosses on Lincoln, the safe aisle or island, and comes over. And we choose to walk if there's a game there or an event there. It's better for us to walk than park, and it pushes us to do the right behavior. So I guess what I'm saying is, I'm not in favor of removing the berms. I don't see, even in the future, having a compelling argument to remove the berms. I think if we're going to do something with complete streets, I think that has to be a citywide thing, but unique to each portion. So down here, but I think with the neighbors, hearing from them, there's a concern about safety, there's a concern about cut-through traffic, there's a concern about speeding and all of these different things, and those should be the symptoms that we're trying to find the root cause of an attack. A binary decision to remove a berm, to leave it or remove it, just seems like a false decision. So even intellectually, just that false decision, I can't support this tonight. And I would be hard pressed to find a compelling argument anytime in the future to do it. But Yeah, you never say never, but I don't see how there's a compelling argument ever at this point, given how it's all turned residential. Everyone that buys there knows what they're getting into, but that's me. Commissioner Macy.
Now I'm worried that I'm cutting my commissioners off, but I guess they can say this after. But thank you for that summary, Mayor. I move that we reject the Traffic Committee's recommendation to remove the berm.
We have a motion by Commissioner Macy. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Colo. Discussion. I saw some hands down here. Commissioner Herzog did have hers up before the motion was made.
I just want to agree with you. I think one-off berms might not make sense without a strategy. However, that neighborhood is growing and there's going to be more families moving in. And as someone in the neighborhood that has a family that has to take their kids to the elementary school, getting to the elementary school easy and safe is what is a priority of this commission, and how we move through this area might need to be looked at in a strategy. And to also think about anything in the city as being stagnant, and there's never going to be a reason to change it because we've moved there or whatever. Nothing will change in this city then. Because I could say that for, hey, if you guys want to close down 696 and make that a greenway, well, I bought my house there with 696 there, and I want to hear those cars moving up and down it, right? So we can't think that just because at one point in time something was something, that it will always be that one thing, because that would be pretty much everything that comes to our table. But anyways, I agree with you, and I support this motion.
Commissioner Colo?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Suggested tonight during public comment that we don't make a decision until 696 is done, but that's not an option, right? Like, we have to make decisions because the people elected us to make decisions, whether they're hard or not. So I agree with everything that's been said tonight. I will also be voting no on this. I do have a question for Mr. Gaucho. I'm sorry, voting an affirmation, no to remove the berms, affirmation of the motion tonight. I do have a question for Mr. Gaucho. What is the process now for starting the complete street study? When should we expect to see that?
Well, it's budgeted this year. Our zoning department is focused right now on, planning department is focused right now on going through the updating process with the zoning ordinance, which is a very extensive, robust process. So I do have some thoughts that I'd share with staff on that, but I think our goal would be to issue an RFQ by the spring. And I do have some thoughts on how we can operationalize that.
Okay, great. Because just like the mayor said, I would be hard pressed to ever make any change or vote to change this area without some really good information, really good charrettes, and buy-in from the community at large.
Notice that with complete streets, I don't know who made the point, but it was a very good point that, you'll look at the city as a whole, and I'm almost going to bet this is not the priority. If you could change everything, and make everything perfect like that, we do it. But there are other parts of the city that would require focus for many, 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 many years to come than, a situation that isn't popping up to say, please remove these, please remove these. It's causing a whole myriad of issues. In fact, we've heard the opposite, right? But we have to look at the area, we have to study it, we have to get charrettes, we have to get neighborhood feedback. Like, what are your main concerns? Is it speed? Is it safety? Whatever. And it's not a berm decision. It's a comprehensive decision. And if we need to put other traffic remedies in that area, let's do it. You know what I mean? Those are easy, small things we can do. Commissioner Douglas.
So I will say that despite my fury, every time I've tried to go through this area and run up against a berm and had to go in some roundabout way, I will support the motion, but only because it's a one-off, not the comprehensive solution that I seek here, and two, for the cost.
All right, anybody else? All right, so just to make sure we vote appropriately, because it's one of these positive, negative, equals a negative. So the motion is to reject the recommendation of the traffic committee, which has an effect of basically doing nothing. Right. And so if you vote in favor, then you're rejecting that recommendation, which means that the berms will stay. So a yes is a stay, a no is to remove based on the, okay? Because sometimes it's 9:44 at night. Just want to, we've had goofs in the past. Not from anybody up here. All right. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, so the motion passes. The berms will stay, and based on what I heard, hopefully for a long time, and we're going to get some attention to handle the other symptoms in the area. If we have issues, people running stop signs, we have speeders, we have pedestrian park personnel or people, you know, getting into conflict in terms of their travel paths, we're going to look at that and make sure we address those symptoms. Okay, good. Yes. And my son better not be bricking so much that the ball goes into the street that often, I'll tell you that. All right. That brings us to item 10, which is the 2026 capital improvement bonds. Mr. Grochowski.
Thank you, Mayor. On the agenda tonight for your consideration is a request from the City Manager's Office for you to examine and consider a resolution authorizing 2026 capital improvement bonds or limited tax general obligation bonds for the primary purpose of funding improvements to the city's water and sewer infrastructure and related infrastructure with regard to that. In anticipation of that and to assist us, we hired expert bond counsel, Miller Canfield. They're here this evening, along with municipal financial advisors, Benzinski and team, who are here as well tonight. They will be able to answer any questions you may have regarding the bonds or the processes, and they would be happy to answer any questions you have. They did prepare in collaboration the resolution and the letter that accompanied the resolution. There was a small last-minute revision that we are recommending if the council is so inclined to consider possibly adopting the resolution tonight. It pertains to the publication instead of the Royal Oak Review, given that the Oakland Press has taken over the the reporting of Royal Oak News and from the Tribune, who stopped publication, same ownership, just Tribune stopped publication. We think it's more efficient to publish with the Oakland Press. So if the discussion gets to the point where you want to consider approving it, we would recommend that the motion to approve include a small revision to reflect the Oakland Press as opposed to the Royal Oak Review.
Tribune.
No, Royal Oak Review was originally in there.
Was it originally in there?
And then we're moving to the Oakland Press. Nonetheless, I don't have anything else. Mr. Gaccio does have a presentation that I think goes in more detail about the process and in anticipation of hopefully answering many questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, questions for Mr. Gaccio, real quick. Yes, Commissioner Cheatham.
I actually have a question about the Royal Oak Review, Tribune, Oakland, because the Royal Oak Review
The CNG
goes...
newspaper.
What?
It's CNG's mail publication.
Yeah, so everybody gets that versus the Royal Oak, the Oakland.
It's my understanding they only publish twice a month, whereas the Oakland Press publishes every day. So in order to get it published sooner, the Oakland Press would publish this Thursday, whereas the Royal Oak Review wouldn't publish till the end of the month. And given some time constraints with, if these do move forward with construction season and bidding season, we wanted to make sure we kept those moving because this would trigger a 45-day wait period basically for the referendum. And so assuming that, we want to make sure that the timing is right so we can make sure that we're good in the spring to bid these out because there's a long process after what occurs this evening. This is just the first step. It's the only step that the commission would take any formal action on, but there's multiple steps along the way to actually bring all this to fruition.
The review doesn't go to apartments.
And the law only requires of a publication in a paper of general circulation in the city. I think we'd reach more people with the Oakland Press, but again, it's a timing issue.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Nick, and thank you, Mayor and Commission. I'm going to provide just a brief overview of the process, why this is the recommendation from management, why we recommended this during the budget process for the commission. And I'll allow our financial advisors and our legal team to answer any technical questions that I would fat finger. Okay, so the proposed infrastructure improvements, I always like to start with the bottom line up front. So there's three major objectives that we're trying to achieve when we looked at the water system during the budget process. We have 10 water main improvements that require substantial investment. All of those are going to be correlated with the existing planned infrastructure improvements related to the road bond. We have a lead line residential program that is required for the city to execute per state mandate. And we also have the need to modernize and make uniform residential and commercial water meters, which are currently not uniform and are inconsistent in the way they operate. So I'll speak to all of those three things tonight. With that, the three goals that would come from this, number one, efficiency is a primary goal. That's related to specifically funding the water main improvements that coincide with the planned road bond improvements. We have a limit. Well, I'll hold those comments as I work through the presentation. Number two, the improvement of service. We really need to modernize our water meters, modern water meters that are existing in many of our neighboring communities are able to provide proactive notice for our water customers. We should be able to tell you if there's an unusual flow of water going through your meter, and that might indicate that you have a leak or something that you should be looking into. That's a modern service amenity that we should be able to provide. You should be able to see your usage history on a public dashboard, like any consumer's energy dashboard or DTE dashboard, like any other public utility. So you can do that with modern water meters, and we just don't have that in place at the moment. And then finally, the mandate. That's not really a choice. We have a certain number of lead lines on the private side that we're required to replace per the water system, funded through the water system, and that is going to continue to be costly. And so what we're going to be proposing is taking a kind of a long-term view to provide relief for ratepayers on the front end. So beginning focusing on the water improvements. We have a road bond millage that was approved in '23. Its term expires in 2034. We have a substantial street infrastructure plan that is already being executed by the engineering department. We haven't been able to leverage the funding to improve all the water mains under those streets. So we're proposing that we kind of take lightning in the bottle. We know we already have road bond funding and road improvements planned. Does it make sense to improve the water mains that are underneath those roads that we already know have needs that are part of our capital improvement plan? So this is really just making sure we're improving the surface and what's under the surface of those roads. And we need funding to do that. We have a substantial amount of roads to improve over the next 3 years alone that are estimated to cost about $20 to $21 million. And here the engineering department has a snapshot plan. This will be made available. I see people squinting. You'll be able to capture this as part of the minutes and look at it. But there's a small sheet and a road map here that indicates the planned water main improvement projects that are needed that correspond to the road bond funding projects over the next 3 years per the engineering department. Water meter, we just kind of created a current and proposed. So on the current, you have a lot of legacy residential water meters. They require manual reads. It means we actually are having people, our DPS employees, walk out there and physically reading water meters. And that is a more inefficient, a less efficient way of doing it. That's very typical. Water meter technology has changed substantially, especially over the past 15 years. The industry has really flourished. It's becoming kind of a modern standard that you have a water meter that is capable of providing radio reads or wireless reads transmitted back. And that wireless ability is what enables the customer service improvements Analog won't be able to provide that customer service standard. And then there's estimated billing with those older meters that are requiring analog reads, right? Those often aren't, well, they're not communicating. So if they're not communicating, sometimes that results in estimated billing rather than actual reads, which ultimately just creates a moving target for expectations on the customer service side of things. And we want expectations. We want consistent, accurate reads for our billing. We don't want catch-up bills. And catch-up bills are a function of estimated billing when the meter's not reading correctly. On the right, you see what's proposed. So we have a proposed water meter improvement plan that would improve and uniform all water meters throughout the city. And the estimated cost is $4.3 million to do that. That is using a pre-qualified bid that has already been competitively bid through Oakland County Water Resource Commission. So we have an ability to already tap into that contract. That is with Ferguson, who provides a Neptune standard. Those same Neptune meters are available in Troy, Southfield, Berkeley, Oak Park, and Ferndale. So most of our neighbors around us are operating on this same meter. It's the same experience. These meters provide wireless water meter reads. It does enable a proactive leak detection that I do think is very important for service expectations today. Mobile pay and online billing services also improves with that dashboard experience. And functionally, it's going to increase your actual meter reads and reduce your estimated billing. And that's really important in terms of predictability, service, and reputation. You want that predictability as a public utility. And finally, the mandate, lead line mandates. Michigan Lead and Copper Rule was updated in 2018. The state of Michigan passed a mandate that local utility must improve all known lead lines within their jurisdiction. And for any unknowns, there is the requirement to verify those lead lines and manage that inventory and then execute replacements for any new lead lines discovered that were undocumented prior to that. At the time, right now, according to our DPS director, we have $8 million in estimated known lead line improvement obligations over the next 5 years alone to meet our compliance needs. So we are required to submit reporting on our progress to the state through an annual process. We have lead line sampling processes that also occur every fall that will help, that the state looks at to also measure our performance here. So that is an $8 million cost that the city is mandated to spend. And the only way that we can spend that is through rates, as it's a function of the water and sewer fund, not the general fund. So funding options, there's kind of three ways we looked at it. There's the capital bond issuance, which is what's proposed. It's the most common and cost-effective option for financing major water and sewer improvements by local utilities and local governments. The debt is repaid through the water and sewer system. It's not paid through the general fund, so there is no impact to the taxpayers. This is funded through the water and sewer fund, as the water and sewer fund is the only service that's benefiting from the bond. It is guaranteed by the city's credit, though. So should the water and sewer public utility fail, should people stop using water, then the general fund will be on the hook for the debt payment. The revenue bond, there's a slight modification. You're still borrowing money, but it's guaranteed by the water and sewer fund alone. So because it's not guaranteed by the full faith and credit of the government of Royal Oak, the taxpayers of Royal Oak, it's going to increase the additional cost because the risk is going to be increased. It's also going to increase the requirements of the water fund. So we're going to have to increase water rates essentially more than we otherwise would to create a security against the debt that we're going to be borrowing for the water fund. So that's kind of what a revenue bond is. In anything more specific, I'll leave to our financial advisor. That's as I understand it. And then there's the pay-as-you-go approach, the pay-go approach, and that's kind of how we've been doing it, where you examine your annual rate, you examine your capital needs, and we make a determination on what we can afford, what we can't afford. What we can't afford is deferred. That is the concern that I have, is that we have an opportunity to fund the water mains below these road bond projects. And to defer that would lose that opportunity and risk reopening a brand-new street you just paid good money to rebuild and reconstruct to improve a water main that needed to be improved beforehand. A couple of reasons. My 5 management reasons that I have is, number one, it accelerates the critical improvements. So bottom line, as we talked about, we're funding water main replacements now, not later. That we're going to get those benefits now. And those benefits are going to last throughout whoever's in the property, who's paying that water bill today, or someone, perhaps the property turns over in 20 years. 20 years, that property and that occupant is still benefiting from this improvement. So in my view, that's a little bit more equitable anyways. It maximizes coordination savings. That's aligning your water bond with your road bond. It just practically makes sense. It's a more efficient way for us to go about it since the road bond is already a planned infrastructure improvement. We fulfill the state mandate without putting short-term strain. Addressing $8 million of mandated needs through water rate increases would be substantially more than the annual debt service it would take to repay the bond to achieve all these improvements, which ultimately protects the ratepayers from those steep increases. We're a public utility. We want predictability and we want consistency where possible on rates. We want to avoid steep hikes, even if they're in the face of mandates. So this is a different way to address a mandate while smoothing the rates over a period, rather than giving you an $8 million mandate recommendation over the next couple of years. And of course, timely investments. Once a bond is sold and the city receives money, the city must expend those bond expenditures within 3 years of receiving it, I believe. And I'm going to, again, I'll have our financial advisors go into detail on that, but that's my understanding is after we receive the revenues, we have to spend them within 3 years, which means you're going to realize those improvements within 3 years of the issuance. And I'll finish with just a look at our water system. This is a great table that our DPS director put together. And it really gives the picture of the development of Royal Oak as an incorporated city, the growth of Royal Oak. If you look at what I spotlit there between 1910 and 1950, 50% of our 135 miles of the water mains installed were before JFK was president. Of that 50%, 75 of those miles were installed during the Roaring 20s, which I think is an interesting statistic. So these water mains, on one hand, were built really well, but on the other hand, they will fail. And we recognize sometimes they give examples and signals of failure through increased water main breaks. And as we noted during the budget process, we've seen an increase in water main breaks from the DPS department over and over again. So while they're 100 years and still technically kicking, that's not something I necessarily want to rely on, is going 150 years. I don't know that that's the record I want to break. With that, I will take questions. Anything on the legal side, the legal process side, can be handled by our colleagues from Miller Canfield. Anything on the financial advisor side, the bond process side, the technicalities can be handled by Badziski and Company. And I invite both them when you're ready to come up to the center.
For some operational questions, would that be you, Mr.
Yeah,
Gaucho, to answer? So what I hear you saying is that part of this strategy, and we'll get into the financials, but there's some operating savings here that we would get as well. So we would get savings on the billing side, like, we have a lot of issues with the estimated billing, people coming up, hey, what's going on? And you have to spend all those hours working with them. Might not be huge. You'd have some savings on the meter reading side, because now you can drive down the street, use RFID, even connected in some cases, depending on the meter technology, correct?
Correct.
And that to me would be pretty good savings over 20 years. And then the fixing and repairing, which seems to be the biggest risk of doing nothing or the status quo, meaning we're out there, we had a record number of water main repairs. And so the variable cost you would get, hopefully, would, at least on the new ones installed, would go away if they were installed properly.
Yeah, that's correct. The DPS director indicated he could reallocate resources that are currently dedicated to kind of low-value services like manual meter reads, right? We can reallocate that to something a little bit more impactful on the community or on the water system side.
And just real quick maybe, and I don't know if you have the answers to this, but obviously the life of a water main is 100 years. So we also have a new technology that we talked about before that can extend the life. So when you look at like your dollars spent over lifetime, it's, you know, a very long lifetime. The meters, do you know the useful life of these modern water meters? Are they 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? Are we going to have to replace them within the length of the bond or the duration of the bond?
Good evening.
Hey, Mr. Yee.
Good evening. So the water meters, water meter reading devices have a 20-year warranty on them, 10-year full warranty on the batteries, and another 10-year prorated warranty. After probably about 20 years is when really the reading starts going downhill and gets, starts not being as accurate. But I think it's safe to say 20 years is a good life expectancy for the meters.
And then you have a standard replacement plan that you're working as they fail or as you
right,
hit 10% a year, you're popping them out, I mean, I'm making up that number, but you have a replacement cycle.
Right. Well, right now we're way behind on our cycle, yes, but we have been replacing several a year, like 1,000 a year, but we're quite a ways behind.
And the same question about lead lines. I imagine the new lines are the lead lines lasted a long time. I imagine the new water lines will last, a very long time.
Yes, we expect our water lines won't have problems for our lifetime anyway.
And the reason I'm making that point is, any financial discussion we have, I'll make sure we're not catching our tail,
Right.
Okay. Yep. Any other operational questions before the financial parts? Commissioner Macy.
Probably also going to end up being for Mr. Yee, so don't go far. I'm totally fascinated by this chart. And maybe this question is actually for Ms. Donahue, but how many miles are we replacing in this plan? Does anyone remember? It's okay if you don't. I'm just curious because this chart captured my fancy.
I don't have the specific mileage. It is a drop in the bucket. When you look at this chart, it's like any money we can put to our water mains, we should be doing. These are scary numbers that keep me up at night. So.
Okay. Yeah. And then, well, maybe both of you stay there because my next question is kind of following up on what the bearer was saying is the fact that we have still some water lines is scary, but also crazy impressive and reminds me of like the washing machine that I had growing up that lasted 55 years. And now, it's like every 4 years I have to replace my washing machine. Is the technology like a ton better? Like, do we expect now what we're putting in underneath these roads are going to, they're going to be talking about them and don't make me do math, but 110 years from now?
Yeah, nowadays we put in mostly ductile iron water main and some HDPE piping. Almost all of our old stuff is cast iron pipe, which is more susceptible to pitting, breaks, failures. So we do expect ductile iron to serve us better. I still don't think you can say we're going to get more than 100 years. I don't know that any engineer would ever say that. But since they've been installed, they've been very reliable type of pipe.
And how about for like freezing and unfreezing?
Well, we always bury them with at least 5 feet of cover, so you're below the frost line so that we don't have that issue.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Cheatham.
So we've been operating on a pay-as-you-go kind of framework for paying for these. And is it fair to say that the water pipes that get replaced are largely those that we have the water main breaks? Like that propels replacement?
So I think it's a combination of things. We look at kind of the history of water main breaks, but right now a lot of this is where we're putting roads in.
Okay.
So it makes sense to put the infrastructure in below where we're putting the roads in, do it all at once.
Okay, that's great. And I know that that's something that we're looking for. Like with this bond, it would give us more ability to replace the water pipes while we are doing the road repairs, road reconstruction. But we have had a lot of water main breaks in the last few years, correct?
Correct.
And so one question I have for you is like when these water mains break, does that generally happen in like the Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. time period?
Always.
Does it always happen when the weather is relatively comfortable for employees to be working in?
Right, yeah.
Does it have any impact on the residential areas or the commercial areas around it where the water might have to be shut off for some time unexpectedly?
For sure. I mean, generally speaking, water main breaks happen when weather changes, especially when you get extreme temperatures. And I think a lot of that is due to water temperature and things like that as they go through these old mains that are underground. And of course, they are not convenient. And of course, they happen in all different areas that require us to turn off water and just do different things that are inconvenient for everyone. So,
yeah. And so I asked those questions, obviously, like they were loaded questions, but I asked them because, I think that's something that I like and I appreciate about this bond, that we would be able to be strategic and, really focus our energies on those older pipes to replace them to try to prevent these water main breaks. And that could have, cost savings because we don't necessarily have to pay overtime for employees. We don't have to put employees at risk of, working in freezing temperatures. And also we can work with our residential and commercial properties to give them some warning when when this work is going to be done. Are those all fair assumptions?
Those are all
that I'm
fair and
making?
accurate, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Commissioner Colo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we were talking about the next 3 years, like we have to expend this money in 3 years. What's the plan for year 4?
I mean,
Well, the capital needs are always going to be ever present with a water and sewer fund. So one of our goals is to build an operating capital reserve so we can blend approaches when necessary. So you have blended debt service and then paying cash when you're able to. But to do that, you need to build an adequate operating capital fund, which was part of our water rate modeling that we did during the budget process last year. So the commission passed a water rate model that contemplates city taking that into the factor for our water rates. So after these projects are done, we are hoping to be at a place where we have cash decisions to make before you have to issue another set of bonds, which you will always have to issue water bonds to improve water infrastructure and road bonds to improve road infrastructure at scale.
But in the meantime, this will help us build a cushion, a safety net.
This builds a cushion.
For year 4, 5, 6, until we get to the point of issuing the next series of bonds potentially.
Yeah, hopefully ongoing. I mean, with Holly's long-term plans, I mean, it's really helpful for capital planning. So those capital plans kind of help us put the right inputs in the model to determine what the capital reserve target needs to be.
Okay. And then I guess the next question is for the financial folks. Could they tell us what the value of this bond is over the course of its lifetime? So, it's $35 million today. What's that at maturity in 20 years?
You mean the total principal and interest requirements? Well, we've run schedules for both, for 3 times 20 years, 25 years, and 30 years. 20 years is 44.6 million. 25 years, it's 52 million. And 30 years, it's 55.65 million.
Real quick on that, was that for a revenue bond?
No, that was for general obligation bonds.
How does that change for a revenue bond?
That would change for revenue bonds. We did not run the numbers for revenue bonds because they would be approximately 25 basis points higher. There would also be a requirement that the city fund a debt service reserve fund, which would be equal to 10% of the par amount of bonds being issued. So if you added if you had 35 million, you'd have to add 3.5 million, which would compound it. So it would be much closer to 40 million, which in reality would cost you approximately $5 million roughly, because it's a compounding effect. It has to be 10% of the par amount of the bonds.
So you're saying it would be approximately 5 million more than the 44.6 million on the 20-year,
Plus interest,
plus interest.
if you did the revenue bond approach. The other thing is with the revenue bond approach, the city has a very good rating currently. We do not anticipate that the rating would change, assuming that all circumstances that are current as of today still remain intact when we go out for bonds, because the city's rating is reviewed every time they issue substantial amount of debt. And assuming that it doesn't change, we cannot guarantee or do not believe that we would be able to garner the same rating for a revenue bond, because it's only secured by the city's water and sewer revenues. So it could be a lower rating, which would then cause a higher rate of interest. Generally, revenue bonds sell, for a city such as Royal Oak, they generally sell 15 to 25 basis points higher.
I mean, I can see that with a lot of different things like parking and whatnot. It seems like everybody need water. You know
Yeah,
what I
but
mean?
it's
Seems
your
pretty-
residents only. For example, and someone's, may say to me, well, wait a minute, Detroit, city of Detroit used to have a better rating on their water system. Well, they were providing water to communities, many communities. I mean, they were providing communities far north of Port Huron.
Mm-hmm.
So they had what they call wholesale customers. You really don't have wholesale customers. You have residential customers.
If I can, what rate were you assuming with those, what you used with those assumptions?
We assumed 4% on the 20 years. We assumed 4.25 on the 25. And we assumed 4.5 on the 30 years.
Okay, and then in all instances, the present value of that 35 million is worth more to us now than it would have been in 20 years at 44.6 million, right? The present value of that 35 million in hand is better for us than the amount we pay.
Well, yes, because, I mean, you're going to have to add inflation. If you did pay-as-you-go and spent 45 million over 40, it's probably going to cost you much, much more.
Okay.
Because just inflation alone tear that up.
And then do you have any projection of where rates, if we were to do this in a year, how do you see rates fluctuating?
I'm 66 years old. I've been working since I was 17. I can't guarantee where rates are going to be next year. If I did, I wouldn't be working at 66. We kind of believe that rates are coming down slightly. I mean, you've seen the Fed cut rates. Right now, there's a belief that there probably won't be any more Fed rate cuts. We don't know what's coming out of Washington right now, any minute. We don't know what's coming out in the next minute. We don't know what tariffs are going to have an effect on anything. So, I mean, we imagine right now that rates are going to be pretty stable. There's nothing that we really see, but who knows what we wake up to tomorrow morning.
As the feds lower their rates, though, do we have to raise ours a little to be competitive with people wanting to borrow money from us as opposed from the Fed?
Actually, your rates are tax exempt. So when the city of Royal Oak issues bonds for capital improvements such as water, sewer, in 99% of the cases, they're issued under a tax exempt basis, which means that the investor that buys the bonds doesn't pay income tax, federal income tax on them. If they buy state of Michigan bonds or bonds issued by Michigan municipalities, they're exempt from the Michigan income tax.
If they live here,
So
right?
they get a better rate than U.S. Treasuries would because they're tax exempt.
Thank you.
And you said
You need
inflation.
to take care of your tax issues for you.
You mentioned the word inflation. You're talking about general inflation, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, you look here, this is specific to the construction sector. So we've seen concrete prices grow. We're seeing tariffs being put on anything and everything from lumber, not that there's a lot of that in this construction, to steel and to aluminum and you name it. You've seen volatility in that regard. We've seen a lot of construction tradespeople. The demand is growing, which is increasing wages, and the supply is shrinking. Some, on the basic construction folks are being rounded up and sent back to their parent countries of origin, and that's causing a strain on the construction industry if you ask anybody. So you're going to see, the average age of a skilled tradesperson right now is, I think in Michigan, in their, is it the low 50s? So, talking 10 years out from now, I think you're going to have even more demand for and higher costs for construction. So part of this isn't just the nominal, standard inflation rate. In my mind, part of the calculation we have to look at is what that inflation rate against the cost of the interest rate, but what is our inflation rate if we do something in 3 years versus pay as you go, and you don't get it done as soon, then you're paying a lot more down the road, outpacing inflation, which means outpacing what we cap at Headley. So it's another mathematical identity to look at. I was thinking that out loud as I was saying it, so if I'm wrong, let me know. All right. Any other questions? Did you guys have a financial presentation to do, or are you just here for questions?
Well, Joe did that. That's an excellent job. He kind of stole their thunder.
I mean, even I understood it. It was pretty good.
Like Joe did that.
And so Joe, just to reiterate, there's savings out of the gate because we're already lifting up the concrete, and we don't have to do it twice. And that's a huge cost to the neighborhoods too when you do it twice. I mean, when consumers used to come in after us, get complaints all the time, it's like, well, they didn't tell us, and they jumped in there and tore up everything and replaced gas lines. And then there's the operational savings that we get, and there's the less risk of interruption because we're getting some of these 234 miles of water mains done, more proactively. And then we're building the ability to have the cushion to, be smarter about when we fund water mains, which leads to a more consistent, smoother rate for our ratepayers.
Yeah, that's a good recap. And so upfront, the annual debt service payment is much less dramatic than raising the capital as you go. But to your point, we built an intentionality here looking at the long game. So we have building a capital reserve to fund these capital improvements post 2030 as part of the plan by design, and that has already been presented and that's been adopted with the current water rates.
And with the new meters too, I mean, from a resident point of view, you can monitor your usage a lot better, and you can avoid and it happens all the time where folks get the $2,500 water bill. I mean, believe it or not, it happens quite a bit. I've had a few that, came just in time where I realized somebody didn't shut off the side hose, and I'm like, why is my water bill? And it's just dripping, and you don't think it's a lot, but it's a lot. So knowing that right away at a monthly point of view, if you have access to it, would be, hopefully allow people to save some money in their overall usage. All right. It's kind of a watered down conversation at this point. I have no more lines.
You don't want to bond this over to the next meeting?
I don't know. It's like drinking from a fire hose. I can't. All right. You got your breaking point? Kevin. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so where do we go from here? I'm sorry, Commissioner Hunt?
I think you started that, and I was going to ask Mr. Arnoff or you're here, or Mr. Grachowski, what is the next step? And if this passes, I understand Mr. Grachowski indicated it's a longer process, so what's the next step?
Sure. So as Mr. Grachowski indicated at the beginning, the first step here after this meeting is the publication of the notice of intent. That was the conversation about the newspaper. So that's step one. So let's say that notice gets published sometime in the next week or so. That gets published one time, and it triggers a 45-day period during which, if a petition signed by 10% of the registered electors of the city is signed, this otherwise non-voted bond issue would be forced into a referendum essentially becomes a voted bond issue. So assuming that doesn't happen, we have this 45-day period that passes. Once that passes, we can move forward preparing for the bond sale. There are really two things that you are doing in your resolution. You're authorizing that notice, but you're authorizing the bond issuance itself. Sometimes that's two steps, sometimes it's one. For kind of efficiency, the approach that the city's taking here is combining that authorization for both those steps into one, so you don't need to act again. 45-day referendum period passes, we prepare for the bond sale. What does that mean? There are two ways of selling bonds. I won't explain them in much detail, but suffice to say, one is what we call a negotiated sale, where you've picked an underwriter before or at the beginning of the process, and they're with you, and they sort of work the bond sale to their investor network. The other is a competitive sale. The city is lined up for a competitive sale. What does that mean? It means that on a date certain, the entire sort of bond market will have a notice that's available to it of your bond issue. Wall Street firms and so forth, every kind of bond issue trades on the same markets. And so there will be a bond sale sometime early in 2026, coordinated with the kind of the final sizing decisions based on bids and so forth. And so on one date, all of the bids for your bonds from various underwriters, because you're not picking one ahead of time, you're having kind of like a closed auction where no one sees anyone else's bids, and sort of virtually the bids are opened at the City Hall steps, but now that all happens on computer. We used to have to go to the City Hall steps and check to see if any bids had been dropped off in front of City Hall. But here it would all of the bids would be opened, so to speak, at the same time. And what we call the true interest cost, that takes into account a few variables, but there's an accepted legal formula for the true interest cost to the city, which takes into account issuance costs and adjustments to purchase prices and so forth. So every bid is measured the exact same way, and you're required by law to award to the bid that produces the lowest true interest cost. This isn't one where we've got, sometimes with projects, you got the lowest qualified bidder, you have some subjective elements. That is not the case. Once the commission adopts its resolution, there is a fixed approach to how the bid is awarded. Now, you can look at the bids, and in consultation with your financial advisor, the finance team could look at the bids and say, you know what, we don't like any of them. Market took a turn on us. You don't have to accept any bids. But if you do, if the finance team does, it has to be the bid that produces the lowest true interest cost. That's the bond sale. That locks in the cost and the interest rate. You would then, it's a little like signing the purchase contract on your house. You got the purchase contract date, and then you got a period to close, right? So we have our bond sale, and then somewhere around 3 weeks later, you'll actually close with the bidder whose bid produced the lowest true interest cost, and then proceeds will be delivered. And as Joe said, you have that 3-year period, and that's driven by the tax rules. As Bobby indicated, your bonds are tax exempt. One of the requirements there is generally, with some exceptions, and there's some wiggle room for unexpected contingencies, but the idea is that you have an expectation that you're going to spend essentially all of the money within 3 years. So the whole process from, say, tonight to that time when the proceeds are delivered can be as little as, like, say, 90 days, but we're also going to coordinate that with project bidding so we get the sizing down right.
Thank you for that. In response to Commissioner Colo's question, we were given the 3 different costs associated with the number of years, 20 years, I think 20, 25, and 30. Will the, I would guess I say proposals that will be given include all 3 of those different metrics?
No.
Okay.
So once we publish so we talked about the notice of intent, there's another notice. The notice that the whole bond market kind of responds to when they're bidding on the bonds for that, where they virtually open them up at the City Hall steps. At that point, the principal payments, the principal amounts and the term of the bonds is set. So everyone is, of course, the variable is the interest rates. They're bidding on different interest rates. But that notice that goes out to the market says, city has decided for a just as an example, 20-year bond issue that will amortize every year with this principal payment each year. So you, financial institutions on Wall Street, you all tell us what your interest rate bids are based on that exact principal amortization schedule. So at the time we solicit those bids, that term, the 20, 25, 30 years will be set. And they'll only bid on one.
Thank you.
I'd clarify, before we get to that process, we'd come back with a recommendation where we would show you what the term proposal would be, what the well, this is the not to exceed amount. You're voting on the not to exceed amount, which is 35 million. So we would give you all of the recommendations and then water rate impact results from the modeling that we created last year. So as I understand right now, Holly is looking at issuing prospective bids for work, which happens late winter, late December, early January. So we would be looking at, bid review over the winter with, I think, an expectation of me bringing the formal recommendation back to you before we go to issue for just a public update, probably in early March, I would guess. But at this time, we modeled the 20-year term.
20-year? So actually, we did have some questions from public comment, and it said the period of time, 20, 30, or whatever, we have 20, 25, and 30. You've modeled it with 20, and as we move down this process, eventually we have to settle in on what exactly we're going to go to market with, right? Okay. The other question, what effect will the bonds have on the general fund? That's really tied to, will our property taxes go up to pay for the bonds? So my understanding is that if the modeling works correctly, it's covered in the rates of the ratepayers, and like we do today, pay as you go, was all these improvements, all these capital improvements that we've ever done are always paid for by the ratepayer, right? Because it's an enterprise fund.
Correct.
So the impact on our general fund would be nothing.
Correct.
And then how much in arrears? I don't know what that question means. I think that the answer would be, if you look at that chart up there, we have always a lot of work to do when it comes to our water mains. It's a cat and mouse game.
Yeah, I'd say, we have an annual audit process. That annual audit will show financial statements and the status of the water and sewer fund. That audit is by law going to be presented publicly in December. But I could speak for the 2024 financial statements that were presented, and the city had a positive cash position. No. I don't believe we have existing debt that the water and sewer fund is obligated to.
Right.
The only debt that it has paid is recovered through a special assessment that is related to the GWK Coon Drainage District. That is a debt that is covered by all cities that use them for stormwater treatment. Yep. And that debt is retired, I believe, in 2030.
Yep. Good. Okay.
If I could add one other detail on the tax question. As we've discussed, the plan is to pay debt service out of water and sewer rates. But with as Joe indicated, with the city's backing, if for some reason that fell short, the city's general fund is on the hook to sort of back it up. However, there is no authority to raise taxes. So if for some reason the water and sewer fund did not cover the debt, and the general fund were obligated to make payment, you do not have authority to raise taxes. It would have to be from existing sources, existing tax capacity. That's why we call this a limited tax general obligation pledge. So even that city backup we talked about is limited to existing sources.
Yeah, but you're saving $5 million on that, right out of the gate, lower interest rate, and compared to pay as you go. So if we have a water fund that's in trouble, and we continue to have water main breaks, and we continue to have all these other things, the general fund is backing that up because we're just not going to allow residents not to have water. right? So no matter what, our water system is always on the back of the general fund because people need water. It's a human right. Correct? Or, I mean, I know what you're saying, but I'm saying also.
Yeah, absolutely.
we-
I think that I know that the question was initially posed at public comment about raising taxes.
Yeah, I think it was, that we understand the full faith and credit of the city. I think the question was more, I mean, if it's a bad model, we wouldn't do it. You know what I mean? I would just be like, oh, if there's a 20%, 30% chance that we're going to have to back this out of the general fund, then we got a much bigger issue. But I think that in this particular case, we have ratepayers, they need water. We're smoothing the costs over them so they're not going to get shocked over the next 5, 10, 20 years, and provides consistency and reduces costs. So if anything, it could, in a way, with the cost savings, reduce the risk and burden of the general fund, especially up front. Compared, it's full faith credit, but compared to the fact that our general fund will always have to back, if the water fund becomes insufficient, if that enterprise fund becomes insufficient, people still need water. Okay. Anybody else? All right, tough crowd, everybody. Not everybody at once, okay? All right, so also one more recap. Whatever we do tonight, we always have options down the road. Like you said, if the market changes, it might not just be in interest rates, but it might be overall in the economy. It might be, home values drop. We have massive unemployment. All these things could happen in the next 10 days. The plague, anything could happen in 30 days, right? That doesn't mean you don't do anything because something could happen. But as we go through this process, if we find out 30 days from now, everything catches up and there's, significant issues out there, and we decide, look, we're not going to move forward with this. We always have that right not to accept any of the bids. Even up to the last point, we have the ability to say, even if they're competitive rates, we can be like, you know what, we don't like those rates given our new found understanding of where the economy's going.
We are not going to move forward without the administration telling us to move forward.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Macy.
With the clarity that I am punting this squarely into the next commission's problem zone, I will move approval.
With the recommended revision?
In the language of, yeah, given the timing of the newspaper publication.
With the revision of changing the publishing newspaper to the online Oakland Press. Yes, okay.
The Oakland Press.
Sorry,
It's
the
printed.
Oakland Press.
Okay. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Douglas. Discussion. Commissioner Chisholm.
I am still a little stuck on the newspaper. I saw Commissioner Macy, she knew it. I'm just wondering, so I hear the timelines, and I hear the importance of this. Is there anything that would preclude us to, how are we communicating this to the public? I just want to be viewed as transparent on this. I don't want it to sound like we were seen to the public like we were trying to be, hiding this in any way. So that's my concern. I like the idea of making sure that we cast a broad net and make sure that the community is aware of this as much as possible, just to avoid any accusations of not being transparent.
And I think by switching to the Oakland Press, you're actually reaching a broader scope of potential people that are interested in that issue. And again, the timing, the Royal Oak Review is only published twice.
I heard the timing, yeah.
We're also required, and maybe bond counsel could, the notice of intent is quite large. It has to be
Quarter page.
quarter page. They've provided the actual notice that has to fill that quarter page. So there's no hiding behind that we're issuing a notice of intent to proceed. And again, I think that was just based on timing with the review only going out twice a month. And I suspect the Royal Oak, I'm stuck on Royal Oak Tribune, the Oakland Press, That'll remain for some time? Yeah, so it remains for, so it would be published Thursday, but remain published, whereas a review, it would come out once and remain in that one publication.
And if I may, I think there were a couple of points that were made very quickly when I brought this up earlier, and one was that the Royal Oak Review does not go to apartments, and that it sounded like that the Oakland Press has a broader readership, larger audience. So, I just wanted to make sure that we gave it enough attention to make sure that we're being really thoughtful in that decision. So thank you.
Commissioner Hunt.
I'll just say, it's always kind of nerve-wracking when you're taking on debt. But I think in this particular instance, it is, it's good cost or low cost for the projects that we desperately need to do. Holly said, this is a drop in the bucket of the lines that need to be replaced, and I think if we can be proactive and get ahead of it, and take on a debt that is not as daunting as it could be. And most municipalities take on this type of debt, or I should say, have these types of bonds issued on a regular basis. This is not anything that's outside of the ordinary. So I think I'm comfortable with moving forward in this direction. And we have competent bond counsel, competent financial advising here, so I would be supportive of this.
Debt always has a bad name, and I get it, and we don't want to overextend for a myriad of reasons, but it's a useful tool. In your personal life, you got a mortgage to buy your house, right? You could have waited till you were 87 years old to save up the money to buy the house, and you get a loan to buy a car. Companies all the time take on debt because you can get more done with that debt than you can, taking your cash and taking it out of R&D or whatever it may be. So I think in this case, I would equate it to, you have a roof that needs to be repaired, and you don't have the 20 grand to repair the roof, and your option is to wait 5 years till you save the money, and maybe your roof is in worse shape, horrible shape, and it costs you 40, 50 grand to get it done, and then you're saving again, and you're causing a lot, and then your roof leaks, and it ruins all your stuff in your house, and it causes a whole bunch of issues. Or you get a note now, fix it now, and you save money in the long run and save headaches in the long run. That's what debt markets are there for, and that's why municipalities use them, and that's why corporations use them, and that's why everyday people use it. So I'm not a big advocate for all predatory lending and all that stuff. Don't get me wrong, there's a whole conversation there, but this is a useful tool, low interest, to get the things we need to get done, especially logistically with the roads being lifted up. It just seems dumb not to do it just for that one reason alone. So I'll be supporting the motion. Anything else? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
If it's unanimous, we're comfortable that it's not a
All
roll
right, I
call.
was asking bond counsel if we
Oh,
need a
roll
roll call, but he says
you're certainly welcome to. It's not statutorily required. It's not part of our opinion requirement, but.
Thank you.
All right. Feel really bonded over that discussion. No? No takers? All right.
I don't know, I'm just kind of.
I'm in a great amount of debt to you, Commissioner Colo, for that dad joke. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn? Commissioner Herzog.
A motion.
Ooh, all right. Is there a second on that? Second by Commissioner Hunt. Any discussion on Commissioner Herzog's motion to adjourn? Just say, obviously, she doesn't want to do any more work on behalf of the people of Royal Oak, but that's fine. All right, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Adjourned.